There is an image that stays with you long after the credits roll for the final time. A throne made of swords, forged in Dragonfire, standing in the center of a ruined hall. Snow drifts through the collapsed ceiling, the seat of power that launched 1,000 betrayals, that cost the lives of kings and children and everyone in between, sits empty. Nobody won it. Nobody could. The Iron Throne was never the point. The Iron Throne was a test, and almost everyone who reached for it failed. Game of Thrones is not a story about who sits on a chair. It is a story about what happens to people who believe the chair matters more than anything else. It is a story about cycles, about the way violence begets violence across centuries and continents, about how the sins of fathers land on the shoulders of children who never asked to carry them. The complete timeline of this show stretches back thousands of years before the first episode ever aired, and it reaches forward into a future the show only hints at. To understand what happens in the final season, you have to understand what happened before recorded history. To understand why a young woman burns a city, you have to understand why a conqueror built a throne out of the swords of his enemies 300 years earlier. Every event in this story is a consequence of something that came before. Every tragedy is a bill coming due. Welcome to the long night. Get comfortable, settle in, turn the lights down low. This one is going to take a while, and that is exactly the point. We are going to walk through the entire timeline of Game of Thrones, from the dawn of civilization in Westeros to the final frame of the final episode, and we are going to do it slowly, carefully, the way a story like this deserves to be told. If you have not subscribed yet, it really does help us keep making these. Now, let us get into it. To understand Game of Thrones, you have to go back further than most people expect. Not to the first episode, not to Robert's Rebellion, not even to Aegon's Conquest. You have to go back 12,000 years, to a time before the Seven Kingdoms existed, before the Wall existed, before the very concept of a united Westeros was imaginable. You have to go back to the Children of the Forest. The Children of the Forest were the original inhabitants of Westeros. They were not human. They were smaller, older, stranger. They lived in the deep woods and carved faces into weirwood trees, and they possessed a form of magic that the world would eventually forget was ever real. They were the first, and for thousands of years they were alone. Then the first men came. They crossed over from Essos on a land bridge called the Arm of Dorne, and they brought bronze weapons and horses and an appetite for land that the children had never encountered before. What followed was not a negotiation, it was a war. The first men cut down the weirwood trees, cleared the forests, and pushed the children further and further into the margins of their own continent. The children fought back. They used their magic to shatter the Arm of Dorne, flooding the land bridge and turning it into the chain of islands called the Stepstones. They flooded the neck, turning vast stretches of land into swamp, but none of it was enough. The first men kept coming. The children were losing. And so they made a choice. The kind of choice that seems reasonable in the moment of desperation and reveals itself, over centuries, to be the worst decision anyone has ever made. They created the White Walkers. The show reveals this in Season 6, Episode 5, an episode called The Door, which aired on May 22, 2016. In a vision, Bran Stark sees the moment of creation. A group of children of the forest stands around a man bound to a weirwood tree. One of them, Leaf, presses a shard of dragonglass into his chest. His eyes turn blue, his skin goes pale, and the first White Walker opens his eyes and looks out at a world he will spend the next 8,000 years trying to destroy. Think about what that actually means. The greatest threat in the entire story of Game of Thrones, the enemy that drives the plot from the very first scene of the very first episode, was not born from evil. It was born from fear. The children created the White Walkers as a weapon against humanity, and that weapon turned on its creators. The White Walkers broke free. They did not just refuse to serve the children, they became an existential threat to all life, to the children and the first men alike. The weapon designed to end one war started a far worse one. This is the first and most important pattern in the Game of Thrones timeline. Every weapon eventually turns on the hand that wields it. Every solution creates a larger problem. Every shortcut leads to catastrophe. The children created the White Walkers to win a war. The Targaryens used dragons to conquer a continent. Cersei Lannister armed the Faith Militant to destroy her rivals. In every case, the weapon worked exactly as intended. And in every case, it eventually became the thing that threatened to destroy the person who created it. The war between the White Walkers and the living is called the Long Night. It happened roughly 8,000 years before the events of the show. The White Walkers brought an endless winter that covered the world in darkness and ice. Thousands died. Civilizations collapsed. The children of the forest and the first men, who had been trying to destroy each other for centuries, were forced into an alliance because the alternative was extinction. Together they fought the White Walkers back. The legends say a hero called the Last Hero, or in some tellings Azor Ahai, led the charge. The show never confirms the details. What matters is the result. The White Walkers were driven back to the far north, and the wall was built to keep them there. The wall. 700 feet of ice stretching from coast to coast across the northern border of the Seven Kingdoms. It was not just a physical barrier. It was woven with magic, ancient spells placed there by the children of the forest to prevent the White Walkers from crossing. And at the base of the wall, an order was established. The Night's Watch, men in black, sworn to guard the realms of men against whatever might come from the north. For 8,000 years, they stood their watch, and for almost all of that time, no one believed they were guarding against anything real. That is the deep irony at the heart of Game of Thrones. The most important institution in Westeros, the one organization whose mission actually matters in the cosmic sense, is the one that everyone treats as a joke. By the time the show begins, the Night's Watch is where the Seven Kingdoms send their criminals, their bastards, their unwanted sons. The wall is a dumping ground. The White Walkers are a fairy tale that educated people laugh at, and the real threat, the one that could end all human life, gathers its strength in the frozen wastes beyond the wall, while the lords of Westeros argue about who gets to sit on a chair made of swords. After the long night, the first men and the children signed a pact and lived in relative peace for thousands of years. Then a new wave of invaders arrived. The Andals crossed the narrow sea from Essos, bringing iron weapons and a new religion, the Faith of the Seven. They conquered most of southern Westeros, pushing the first men and their old gods northward. The children retreated even further, into the deepest forests and beyond the wall, until most people in Westeros believed they had never existed at all. The Andals established the kingdoms that would eventually become the Seven Kingdoms. But those kingdoms were separate, independent, and constantly at war with each other. That changed 300 years before the start of the show. Aegon Targaryen, first of his name, came to Westeros from Dragonstone, a volcanic island in the narrow sea. He was not the first Targaryen in Westeros. His family had been lords of Dragonstone for over a century, refugees from the Valyrian freehold who had fled west before the doom of Valyria destroyed their homeland. But Aegon was the first Targaryen to look at the Seven Kingdoms and decide that they should be one kingdom, and that he should rule it. He had 3 things that no other lord in Westeros possessed. 3 dragons. Balerion the Black Dread, the largest and most fearsome dragon ever to fly over Westeros. Vhagar, nearly as large and just as deadly. And Meraxes, ridden by his sister wife Rhaenys. Aegon landed on the eastern coast of Westeros, with fewer than 1,600 soldiers. It did not matter. He had dragons. Aegon's conquest is the event from which all time in Westeros is measured. Everything before it is dated before the conquest. Everything after it is dated after the conquest. The maesters of the Citadel, the scholars who keep the histories of Westeros, made this decision, and it tells you something about how thoroughly Aegon reshaped the world. He did not just conquer 6 of the 7 kingdoms. He created a new calendar. He created a new reality. The key battle of the conquest was the Field of Fire, the only time all 3 Targaryen dragons were unleashed simultaneously in battle. The combined armies of the Reach and the Westerlands, the 2 richest and most powerful kingdoms in Westeros, met Aegon on an open field. It was the largest army ever assembled in Westeros. It did not matter. Balerion, Vhagar, and Meraxes burned them. 4,000 men died in Dragonfire. Tens of thousands more were wounded. King Mern of the Reach died on the field. King Loren of the Westerlands surrendered. After the Field of Fire, resistance to Aegon's conquest was, for most practical purposes, over. Only Dorne resisted. The Dornish refused to meet Aegon in open battle, retreating into their deserts and mountains, and fighting a guerrilla war that the dragons could not win. Dorne would not join the 7 kingdoms for nearly 200 years, and they joined through marriage, not conquest. It is a small detail, but it matters. It proves that dragons are not invincible. They are the most powerful weapon in the world, but they cannot hold territory. They cannot govern, they can only destroy. And destruction, as the entire timeline of Game of Thrones will demonstrate again and again, is not the same thing as power. Aegon built his capital at King's Landing, on the spot where he first set foot on the mainland of Westeros. He forged the Iron Throne from the swords of his defeated enemies, melted together by Balerion's Dragonfire. The throne was deliberately uncomfortable. It had edges and points and blades that would cut a careless king. The legend says Aegon wanted a ruler to never sit easy. He wanted the throne itself to be a reminder that power is dangerous, that a king must always be alert, always vigilant, or the throne will draw blood. The Targaryen dynasty ruled Westeros for nearly 300 years. Not all of those years were peaceful. The Targaryens fought civil wars among themselves. The most devastating was the Dance of the Dragons, a succession crisis that pitted Targaryen against Targaryen and dragon against dragon, and nearly destroyed the dynasty. The dragons died out during or shortly after the dance, and without their dragons, the Targaryens were just another noble family, sitting on a very uncomfortable chair. But they held the throne. Through madness and competence, through just rulers and cruel ones, through plague and rebellion and everything in between, the Targaryens held the throne for 283 years. The Targaryens practiced incest. They married brother to sister, uncle to niece, cousin to cousin, maintaining the purity of the Dragon Lord bloodline. This is not a detail the show hides or romanticizes. It names it, it confronts it, and it uses it to explore one of the central tensions of the entire story. The same bloodline that produces dragons, that produces the ability to command fire, that produces conquerors and visionaries, also produces madmen. Cersei Lannister tells Tyrion, in one of the early seasons, that every time a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin. On one side, greatness. On the other, madness. The Targaryen bloodline is a gamble, and the Seven Kingdoms have been living with the results of that gamble for 3 centuries. This is essential context for understanding Daenerys. She is a Targaryen. She has the blood of the dragon. She can walk through fire unburned. She hatched 3 dragons from stone. She is, by every measure, the most Targaryen person the world has produced in generations, and the show spends 8 seasons asking whether the coin landed on greatness or madness, and the answer it eventually gives is both. Daenerys is great. She frees slaves and inspires devotion and crosses continents. And Daenerys goes mad. She burns a city and murders thousands and declares herself liberator while standing on a mountain of corpses. The coin did not land on one side. It spun in the air for 8 seasons and came down on its edge, and then it fell. The show also establishes, through the history of the Targaryen dynasty, that the Iron Throne is not just a seat, it is an idea. The idea that one person should rule all 7 kingdoms, that power should be centralized, that the will of a single ruler should shape the destiny of millions. Aegon created this idea. Every king who followed him inherited it. And the entire history of Westeros after the Conquest is a history of people fighting and dying over an idea that may have been flawed from the start. The 7 kingdoms were separate for thousands of years before Aegon. They had their own kings, their own customs, their own identities. Aegon forced them together with fire, and the show asks, across its entire run, whether that forcing was a gift or a curse, whether unity imposed by violence can ever become peace. Until the Mad King. Aerys Targaryen, the second of his name, is the fulcrum on which the entire story of Game of Thrones turns. He is the reason Robert sits on the throne when the show begins. He is the reason the Starks are in Winterfell, and the Lannisters are in King's Landing, and Daenerys Targaryen is across the sea with nothing but a name and a claim. Every major relationship in the show, every alliance and rivalry and grudge, traces back to what Aerys did and what was done to stop him. Aerys was not always mad. Early in his reign, he was considered a promising, if somewhat vain, king. But over the years, his paranoia grew. He saw enemies everywhere, he trusted no one, and he developed an obsession with wildfire, the volatile green substance that burns so hot it cannot be extinguished with water. Aerys loved fire. He loved watching people burn. By the end of his reign, he was executing lords and their sons by burning them alive in the throne room, while he watched from the Iron Throne. The event that triggered Robert's rebellion happened in the year 281, after the Conquest, at a tournament held at Harrenhal, the largest castle in Westeros. The tournament itself was a gathering of nearly every major noble house in the 7 kingdoms, and it was at this tournament that Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, the heir to the Iron Throne, did something that shocked the realm. He won the jousting competition, and when it came time to crown the Queen of Love and Beauty, he rode past his own wife, Elia Martell, and placed the crown of winter roses in the lap of Lyanna Stark, Ned Stark's sister, Robert Baratheon's betrothed. By most accounts, this was the moment when all the smiles died. What happened next is one of the great mysteries of the Game of Thrones timeline, and the show does not fully reveal the truth until Season 6. The official story, the one that Robert Baratheon tells and that most of Westeros believes, is that Rhaegar kidnapped Lyanna, that he took her against her will, that he raped her. This is the story that launched a war, but it is not the true story. The truth, as Bran Stark discovers through his visions, is that Rhaegar and Lyanna were in love, they eloped, they married in secret, and Lyanna went willingly, but no one knew that at the time. When Lyanna disappeared with Rhaegar, her brother Brandon Stark rode to King's Landing in a fury. He stood in the Red Keep and demanded that Rhaegar come out and face him. Instead, King Aerys had Brandon arrested. He summoned Brandon's father, Lord Rickard Stark, to the capital. And then, in the throne room, Aerys murdered them both. He burned Rickard alive in his armor, while Brandon strangled himself trying to reach his father, a leather cord tightening around his neck as he strained toward a sword placed just beyond his reach. The show does not depict this scene directly. It does not need to. The characters describe it with enough horror and specificity that the audience can construct the image, and the image is worse for being constructed rather than shown. A father burning, a son strangling, a mad king watching, and the entire court standing silent because no one dared to stop it. After murdering the Starks, Aerys sent word to Jon Arryn, the Lord of the Vale, who was fostering both Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon. Aerys demanded that Arryn send him the heads of both young men. Jon Arryn refused. He called his banners instead. The North called its banners. The Stormlands called their banners. Robert's rebellion had begun. The rebellion lasted close to a year. The decisive battle was fought at the Trident, a river in the Riverlands, in the year 283 times 80. After the Conquest, Rhaegar Targaryen led the royalist forces. Robert Baratheon led the rebels. The two men met in single combat in the middle of the river, at a ford that would afterward be called the Ruby Ford, because the rubies from Rhaegar's breastplate scattered across the riverbed when Robert's warhammer caved in his chest. Rhaegar died in the water. The rebellion was effectively won. But the war was not over. King's Landing still had to fall, and the manner of its falling would poison the politics of Westeros for the next 17 years, right up through the events of the show. Tywin Lannister, the Lord of Casterly Rock, had remained neutral throughout the rebellion, waiting to see which side would win. When Robert's victory became clear, Tywin marched his army to King's Landing and presented himself as an ally to the Mad King. Aerys, against the advice of his council, opened the gates. The Lannister army sacked the city. They murdered, raped, and pillaged their way through the streets of the capital. And in the Red Keep, two specific acts of violence occurred that would echo through the decades. First, Jaime Lannister, a member of the Kingsguard sworn to protect the king, drove his sword through Aerys's back. The Mad King's final words were the same ones he had been screaming for hours. Burn them all. Aerys had ordered his pyromancers to ignite the caches of wildfire hidden beneath the city. He wanted to burn King's Landing to the ground rather than let Robert have it. Jaime killed him to prevent a holocaust, but no one ever asked Jaime why he did it. They simply called him Kingslayer and treated him as a man without honor for the rest of his life. Second, Gregor Clegane, the Mountain, acting on Tywin's orders, found Rhaegar's wife Elia Martell and her two children. He killed the children, then he raped and murdered Elia. The bodies were presented to Robert Baratheon wrapped in Lannister crimson, and Robert did not object. He called it a necessary act of war. Ned Stark, who arrived at King's Landing after the sacking, was horrified. He and Robert nearly came to blows over it. The friendship between them was never the same. This is the world that exists when Game of Thrones begins. Robert Baratheon sits on the Iron Throne. The Lannisters control the wealth and much of the power behind the throne, cemented by Robert's marriage to Cersei Lannister. The Starks rule the north from Winterfell, loyal to Robert but distant from the politics of the capital. The surviving Targaryens, Viserys and Daenerys, are in exile across the narrow sea, hunted and desperate. And beyond the wall, something is stirring, something that has not been seen in 8,000 years. The first scene of the first episode establishes this immediately. Winter is Coming, the series premiere, aired on April 17, 2011. Before we see a single main character, before we visit Winterfell or King's Landing, or hear the names Stark or Lannister, the show takes us beyond the wall. 3 rangers of the Night's Watch ride out into the frozen forest. They find the remains of wildling corpses arranged in a strange pattern, and then the dead get up. The show is telling you, in its very first minutes, what the real story is. Not the politics, not the throne. The dead are coming. Everything else is a distraction. And for the next 7 seasons, almost every character in the show will be too busy playing the Game of Thrones to notice. Ned Stark does not want to leave Winterfell. That is the first and most important thing to understand about the man who drives the plot of Season 1. He is not ambitious. He is not hungry for power. He is a man who fought a war, lost a sister, and came home to raise his children in the cold, quiet north, as far from the intrigues of the capital as geography allows. When King Robert Baratheon rides north to ask Ned to serve as his hand, the advisor who runs the kingdom while the king drinks and hunts, Ned does not want to go. He goes, because Robert asks, because duty demands it, because refusing a king is not something Ned Stark knows how to do. The arrival of Robert Baratheon in Winterfell is one of the great opening sequences in television. The entire household turns out. The Stark children stand in line. Arya pushes through the crowd with a helmet on her head. Sansa is immaculate. Bran has been climbing the walls to watch the royal party approach. And Robert himself is a ruin. Fat, drunk, weary. Nothing like the warrior who won the throne through force of arms 17 years ago. The man who killed Rhaegar Targaryen on the Trident is gone. In his place is a man who hates being king, who hates his wife, who hates the capital, who comes to Winterfell because it is the only place he was ever happy, and he wants to drag his best friend back into the misery with him. Robert's first act is to visit the crypts of Winterfell, where Lyanna's statue stands. He places a feather in her stone hand. He tells Ned that Lyanna should have been his wife. And the grief in his voice is genuine, but it is also selfish, because Robert has spent 17 years mourning a woman he never really knew, constructing an idealized version of Lyanna that has nothing to do with who she actually was, and using that grief to justify every failure of his reign. He loved Lyanna, or he loved the idea of Lyanna. The distinction matters, and the show makes sure you notice it. Robert Baratheon is the first illustration of the show's central thesis about power. He won the throne. He sits on it. He is, by every measurable standard, the most powerful man in the world. And he is miserable. He is trapped in a marriage he hates, running a kingdom he does not understand, surrounded by schemers and sycophants, drowning in wine and debt, and the slow erosion of everything he once was. The throne did not make Robert a king. It made him a prisoner. And the irony, the devastating irony, is that Robert was a magnificent leader in wartime. He inspired men. He fought with courage and conviction. He united the rebels through charisma and strength. But peace defeated him in a way that Rhaegar never could. Robert was built for rebellion, not governance. He was a hammer, and once the nail was driven, he had no purpose left. But there is another reason Ned goes south. Before he leaves for King's Landing, he receives a message from Lysa Arryn, the widow of Jon Arryn, the previous Hand of the King. Jon Arryn is dead, and Lysa believes he was murdered. Specifically, she believes the Lannisters killed him. Ned goes south not just because Robert needs a hand, but because he needs to find out what Jon Arryn discovered that was worth killing him over. What Jon Arryn discovered, and what Ned Stark will spend the entire first season piecing together, is a secret that sits at the very heart of the Game of Thrones timeline. Robert and Cersei's 3 children, Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, are not Robert's children. They are the product of Cersei's incestuous relationship with her twin brother Jaime. Every one of them. The blonde hair was the clue. Jon Arryn had been reading a genealogical history of the great houses and noticed that every time a Baratheon married a Lannister, the children had black hair. Every single time, going back generations, except for Cersei's children. They were all golden-haired, all Lannister, not a drop of Baratheon in them. This secret is a bomb. If it becomes public knowledge, Joffrey has no claim to the throne. Cersei's entire position collapses. The Lannister grip on the 7 kingdoms evaporates. And so the Lannisters will do anything, absolutely anything, to keep it hidden. The first casualty is Bran Stark. In the very first episode, 7-year-old Bran climbs a tower in Winterfell and stumbles upon Cersei and Jaime together. Jaime pushes him from the window. The boy falls. He survives, but he will never walk again, and the push sets in motion a chain of events that will eventually consume the entire continent. Think about that for a second. A child sees something he should not see. A man pushes him from a window to protect a secret. And from that single act of cruelty, you can trace a line to the War of the Five Kings, to the Red Wedding, to the destruction of the Great Sept of Baelor, to the burning of King's Landing. Not directly, not simply, but the line is there. Bran's fall is the first domino. The rest of the show is the sound of them toppling. Season 1 unfolds across 10 episodes, from Winter is Coming on April 17, 2011, to Fire and Blood on June 19 of that same year. In that span, the show establishes a world so dense with characters and politics and geography that it should feel overwhelming, and instead, it feels lived in. The secret to Season 1 is Ned Stark. Sean Bean's performance anchors every scene he is in, with a gravity that makes you believe this man has seen war and wants no part of another. Ned is the audience's guide through the labyrinth of King's Landing, and the show uses his decency as a weapon against you, because you trust him the way the characters trust him, and that trust is what makes his ending devastating. Ned arrives in King's Landing and begins to investigate Jon Arryn's death. He follows the same trail Jon Arryn followed. He visits a blacksmith's apprentice named Gendry, a boy with black hair and blue eyes who happens to be one of Robert's many bastard children. He reads the same genealogical book, and slowly, methodically, he arrives at the same conclusion. The children are not Robert's. They are Jaime's. All of them. Meanwhile, the show is constructing half a dozen other storylines with equal care. Across the Narrow Sea, Daenerys Targaryen is sold by her brother Viserys to Khal Drogo, the leader of a Dothraki Khalasar, in exchange for an army. The show does not soften this. A young woman is handed to a stranger by her own brother, treated as currency in a political transaction, and the show lets you sit with how ordinary everyone treats it. Viserys does not see a sister. He sees a bargaining chip. Drogo does not see a wife. He sees a transaction. And Daenerys, who has spent her entire life being controlled by her brother, does not resist, because she does not know that resistance is an option. But Daenerys is not passive. That is the mistake Viserys makes, and it costs him everything. Over the course of Season 1, Daenerys transforms. She learns the Dothraki language and customs. She earns the respect of the Khalasar. She falls in love with Drogo, and he with her, and the relationship becomes something genuine and mutual, something neither of them expected. And when Viserys demands his crown and threatens Daenerys and her unborn child, Drogo gives him exactly the crown he asked for. He melts gold in a pot and pours it over Viserys' head. Viserys dies screaming, and Daenerys watches without flinching and says, "He was no dragon. Fire cannot kill a dragon." That line is not bravado. It is diagnosis. Daenerys is identifying, in her brother's death, the proof that she is different from him. He claimed the Targaryen birthright but could not survive its test. She will. The show is planting the seeds of everything Daenerys will become, all the way through to the final season, in this single moment. She watches a man die by fire and feels nothing. Remember that. There is another storyline unfolding at the Wall that most people rush past in their memory of Season 1, and that is a mistake. Jon Snow arrives at Castle Black expecting to find a noble order of warriors. What he finds instead is a dumping ground. Thieves, rapists, disgraced knights, men with nowhere else to go. The Night's Watch is the Seven Kingdoms refuse pile, and Jon, who grew up in Winterfell believing he was joining something sacred, has to reckon with the gap between the institution's mythology and its reality. This is the show's first sustained examination of how stories about the past distort the present. The Night's Watch was once great. The memory of that greatness is the only thing holding it together. And Jon, over the course of the first season, begins to understand that the Watch's mission is real, even if the Watch itself has decayed beyond recognition. At the Wall, Jon befriends Samwell Tarly, a self-described coward sent to the Night's Watch by a father who found him unworthy of inheriting the family name. Sam cannot fight, he cannot march, he is terrified of everything, and Jon protects him because Jon is his father's son in every way that matters. The friendship between Jon and Sam is one of the most quietly important relationships in the show. It is not dramatic, it is not built on conflict or betrayal. It is simply two decent men who find each other in a terrible place and decide to be better because the other exists. By the end of the series, it is Sam who tells Jon the truth about his parentage. It is Sam who becomes Grand Maester. The friendships in Game of Thrones do not get celebrated the way the betrayals do, but they carry the story just as surely. And then there is Khal Drogo's death. A Golden Crown is Season 1, Episode 6, aired on May 22, 2011, and it is in this episode that Viserys dies. But Drogo's death comes later, in Baelor and Fire and Blood. and it is not a warrior's death. It is an infection from a wound he received in a fight that began because a Dothraki challenged Daenerys' influence. Drogo is cut. The wound festers. Daenerys, desperate, turns to a witch named Mirri Maz Duur, a woman from a village the Dothraki sacked, a woman who has every reason to want revenge. Mirri performs blood magic. Drogo survives, but not really. His body lives. His mind is gone. He stares at nothing. He breathes but does not speak, does not move, does not respond. Daenerys smothers him with a pillow. She kills the man she loves, because what the magic left behind is not the man she loves. And the show holds on her face while she does it, and the grief there is real, but so is the steel. Daenerys does not break. She does not collapse. She takes the grief and she shapes it into something harder, and she walks into the funeral pyre, and she comes out the other side holding dragons. This needs to be stated plainly. In the first season alone, Daenerys is sold into marriage, assaulted, widowed, deceived by a witch, loses her unborn child to blood magic, and Mercy kills her own husband, and she emerges from all of it not weakened but transformed, holding the first living dragons the world has seen in over a century. The show gives Daenerys the most harrowing origin story of any character in the series, and it uses that origin to make her later fall more devastating, because you have seen what she survived, and you cannot believe that someone who survived all of that could become the thing she becomes. Back in King's Landing, Ned Stark makes the decision that kills him. He discovers the truth about Cersei's children, and, being Ned Stark, he does the honorable thing. He tells Cersei. He gives her a chance to flee with her children before he tells Robert. He does this because he is a good man. And being a good man in King's Landing is a death sentence. Robert dies before Ned can tell him the truth. The king is gored by a boar on a hunting trip, a death that Cersei arranged by having his wine-bearer keep his cup perpetually full. Robert's death is not an accident. It is an assassination so elegant that no one can prove it. And with Robert dead, Joffrey ascends to the throne, Cersei becomes Queen Regent, and Ned Stark finds himself alone in a city full of enemies with a truth that no one wants to hear. You Win or You Die is Season 1, Episode 7. It aired on May 29, 2011. In this episode, Ned confronts Cersei in the Gardens of the Red Keep and delivers one of the most important lines in the show. He tells her he knows the truth about her children. Cersei's response is equally famous. When you play the Game of Thrones, she says, you win or you die. There is no middle ground. Ned does not understand this. Or rather, he understands it but refuses to accept it. He believes that truth and honor and the rightful order of succession will protect him. He believes that once the evidence is presented, the lords of Westeros will do the right thing. He trusts Littlefinger, Petyr Baelish, the Master of Coin, to support him when the moment comes. And Littlefinger betrays him. Of course Littlefinger betrays him. Littlefinger has been manipulating events from behind the scenes for months, possibly years. He arranged for Jon Arryn's murder. He planted the suspicion that pointed toward the Lannisters. He set the entire game in motion, and Ned walked right into the trap, because it never occurred to him that the man helping him investigate a murder might be the one who committed it. Baelor is Season 1, Episode 9. It aired on June 12, 2011. This is the episode that changed television. This is the episode that taught a generation of viewers that the main character can die. Ned Stark stands on the steps of the Great Sept of Baelor, in front of a crowd that includes his daughters, and confesses to treason he did not commit. He does this because he was promised that confessing would save his daughters. Joffrey, who has promised to show mercy, orders his head cut off instead. Sir Ilyn Payne swings ice, the Stark ancestral sword, and Ned Stark dies in the 9th episode of the first season. The show does not cut away. It does not soften the blow. It holds on Arya's face as Yoren from the Night's Watch grabs her and turns her away from the sight. It holds on Sansa's scream. It holds on the crowd. And then Ned's head comes off, and the pigeons scatter from the sept, and the show has just told you, in the most brutal possible way, what kind of story this is. This is not a story where the good guys win because they are good. This is a story where the good guys lose because they play by rules that no one else follows. The cultural impact of Ned's death cannot be overstated. When the episode aired, Sean Bean was the most recognizable actor in the cast. He was featured on every poster, every promotional image, every interview. He was the star of the show, and the show killed him in the 9th episode of the first season. Television did not do this in 2011. Protagonists survived. That was the contract between a show and its audience. Game of Thrones tore up the contract, and every show that followed it benefited from the breach. The idea that any character can die at any time, that narrative safety is an illusion, that the story will not protect you just because it has made you care, this idea existed in literature long before Game of Thrones, but it was Game of Thrones that planted it in the mass cultural consciousness. After Ned, nothing was safe. After Ned, every character you loved was a potential victim. And that awareness, that perpetual anxiety, is what made the show so agonizingly compelling. But Ned's death also serves a structural purpose that goes beyond shock. It establishes the show's moral framework. Ned is good. Ned is honest. Ned plays by the rules. And Ned dies. The show is not punishing goodness. It is demonstrating that goodness, by itself, is not a strategy. In a world where other people cheat, where other people lie, where other people murder, being good without being smart is suicide. The show will spend the next 7 seasons exploring variations of this theme. Characters who are good and stupid die. Characters who are smart and cruel survive, for a while, but eventually their cruelty catches up to them. The characters who make it to the end, the ones still standing when the credits roll on the finale, are the ones who manage to be both decent and shrewd. Jon Snow, Tyrion Lannister, Sansa Stark, Davos Seaworth, Brienne of Tarth. They are not saints. They have all made compromises, but they held on to something essential about themselves, while also learning the rules of the game well enough to survive it. The final episode of Season 1, Fire and Blood, aired on June 19, 2011. 2 things happen in this episode that define the rest of the series. First, Robb Stark is declared king in the North. The Northern Lords, enraged by Ned's execution, rally behind his eldest son and declare independence from the Iron Throne. The North will fight its own war, for its own reasons, with its own king. Second, and more importantly, Daenerys Targaryen walks into a funeral pyre and emerges unburned, holding 3 newly hatched dragons, the last dragons in the world, hatched from petrified eggs that everyone assumed were dead stone, nursed into life by fire and grief, and something that might be magic, or might be faith, or might be destiny. The image that closes Season 1 is Daenerys standing in the ashes, naked and covered in soot, with 3 small dragons clinging to her body. One perches on her shoulder, one wraps around her arm, one raises its head and screams. It is the most hopeful and the most terrifying image the show has produced, because the return of dragons to the world means the return of the most destructive force in history, and the woman holding them is someone whose family was deposed for madness, and the show is not going to let you forget that. Season 2 begins with the 7 Kingdoms fracturing. The North Remembers aired on April 1st, 2012, and within minutes, the show establishes that the War of the 5 Kings is underway. 5 men claim the right to rule. Joffrey Baratheon sits on the Iron Throne in King's Landing, backed by the Lannister army and treasury. Robb Stark fights in the Riverlands, winning every battle, earning the title the Young Wolf. Stannis Baratheon, Robert's elder brother, declares himself the rightful king, because if Joffrey is not Robert's son, then the throne passes to Robert's brothers. Renly Baratheon, Robert's younger brother, also declares himself king, because he has the larger army and the support of the Tyrells, the richest family in Westeros after the Lannisters. And Balon Greyjoy, the Lord of the Iron Islands, declares independence and sends his fleet to raid the north while Robb's army is away. 5 kings, 5 armies, and not one of them paying attention to the wall. Stannis Baratheon deserves particular attention here, because his arc across the series is one of the most carefully constructed tragedies the show tells. Stannis is a man who believes in rules. He believes in law, in duty, in the rightful order of succession. He is Robert's elder brother. If Joffrey is illegitimate, the throne is his by right. And Stannis is correct. He is legally, technically, undeniably correct. But being correct is not the same thing as being king, and the distance between those 2 things is the distance that destroys him. Stannis allies himself with Melisandre, a priestess of the Lord of Light, a red woman from the east who sees visions in the flames and tells Stannis he is Azor Ahai Reborn, the prophesied hero who will save the world from darkness. Stannis does not believe her. Not at first, but Melisandre produces results. She births a shadow, a living darkness in the shape of Stannis, and sends it to assassinate his brother Renly. The Ghost of Harrenhal is Season 2, Episode 5, aired on April 29, 2012. The shadow kills Renly in his tent, in front of Brienne of Tarth and Catelyn Stark, and Renly's death sends his bannermen scattering. Some join Stannis. The Tyrells do not. They go to the Lannisters instead, and that alliance will shape the rest of the war. The Shadow assassination is one of the most unsettling moments in the early seasons, because it breaks the rules. Up to this point, Game of Thrones has felt grounded. Brutal, yes. Unpredictable, yes. But grounded in politics and human nature and the mechanics of power. The Shadow is something else. It is magic. It is the supernatural intruding on the political, and the show never quite lets you forget that this world has magic in it, that the rules you think you understand do not apply everywhere. Theon Greyjoy's arc in Season 2 is equally important and equally painful. Theon is a young man caught between two identities. He was raised as a Stark, a hostage taken by Ned after the Greyjoy Rebellion, treated well but never truly a member of the family. He goes home to the Iron Islands expecting to be welcomed as a prince returning, and instead finds a father who despises him for becoming too soft, too northern, too Stark. Balon Greyjoy looks at his son and sees a stranger, and Theon, desperate to prove he belongs, makes the catastrophic decision to attack Winterfell. The Old Gods and the New is Season 2, Episode 6, aired on May 6, 2012. Theon takes Winterfell with a handful of men while Robb's army is in the south. He forces the people who raised him to kneel. He executes Sir Roderick Castle, the master-at-arms who trained him, and he does it badly, hacking at the man's neck because he does not have the skill to make it clean. The scene is deliberately contrasted with Ned Stark's execution of the deserter in the first episode. A clean stroke, a dignified death. Theon cannot even kill properly. He is performing a role he has not earned and does not understand, and the performance is grotesque. When Bran and Rickon Stark escape Winterfell, Theon cannot find them, and rather than admit failure, he kills two farm boys and burns their bodies beyond recognition and displays them as the Stark children. He murders two innocent children to maintain a lie. The show does not rush past this. It lets you see what Theon has become, and it lets you understand how he got there, step by step, decision by decision, each one seeming small in the moment and monstrous in accumulation. Theon will pay for Winterfell. He will pay for years, in ways the show has not yet revealed, in a dungeon beneath the Dreadfort, at the hands of Ramsay Bolton. But that payment comes later. For now, Theon holds Winterfell and pretends to be a conqueror, and does not understand that he is already lost. Theon's arc across the entire series is, in many ways, the most complete redemption story the show tells. From ward to traitor, to broken man to, finally, protector. Ramsay Bolton strips Theon of his name, his identity, his body, and his will, reducing him to a creature called Reek who flinches at his own shadow. The show depicts this transformation across seasons 3 and 4 with unflinching brutality. Ramsay tortures Theon not just physically but psychologically, rewarding obedience and punishing independence until Theon cannot remember who he was before the pain started. He is castrated, flayed, and broken so thoroughly that when Yara comes to rescue him, he cannot go with her. He crawls back to his cage, because the cage is the only reality he has left. The recovery is slow, achingly, painfully slow. It begins when Sansa arrives at Winterfell, and Theon sees what Ramsay is doing to her, and something in him, some buried remnant of the person he used to be, stirs. He helps Sansa escape. He jumps from the walls of Winterfell with her, and from that moment, inch by inch, Theon begins to reclaim himself. He returns to the Iron Islands. He supports Yara's claim to the Salt Throne. He fights the dead at Winterfell, and he dies in the Godswood, defending Bran, the boy he betrayed, in the castle he stole, having come full circle to a place where the person he is and the person he should have been are finally the same. Bran's words to him before he dies, "You are a good man, Theon," are among the most important words anyone speaks in the entire series. Not because they are true in a simple sense. Theon did terrible things. He murdered children. He betrayed the family that raised him. But the words are true in the sense that matters. Theon chose, in the end, to be good. He chose it knowing it would kill him, and the show argues that the choice is what matters, not the history that preceded it. Redemption in Game of Thrones is not erasure. It is not pretending the sins did not happen. It is choosing differently, even when the cost of that choice is everything. The climax of Season 2 is the Battle of the Blackwater. Blackwater is Season 2, Episode 9, aired on May 27, 2012. It was written by George R.R. Martin himself, the author of the novels on which the show is based, and it is the first truly large-scale battle the show attempts. Stannis' fleet sails into Blackwater Bay. Tyrion, serving as acting hand of the king, defends the city with a plan that is equal parts brilliant and desperate. He sends a single ship into the bay, loaded with wildfire. The ship leaks its cargo into the water. An arrow is fired, and the entire bay erupts in green flame. The sequence is stunning. Ships disintegrate, men burn. The water itself is on fire. And Stannis, watching from the deck of his ship, does not flinch. He orders the landing. He leads the charge. He is the first man on the walls of King's Landing, which tells you everything about Stannis as a leader. He does not ask his men to do anything he will not do himself. He is brave. He is committed. He is, in many ways, admirable. And he is still going to lose, because Tywin Lannister and the Tyrells arrive with a massive cavalry force and smash Stannis' army from behind. Tyrion nearly dies in the battle. He is slashed across the face by a member of the Kingsguard, and the wound scars him permanently. He led the defense of King's Landing. He saved the city, and no one thanks him. Cersei does not thank him. Joffrey does not thank him. Tywin arrives and takes the credit and the title of hand, and Tyrion is pushed back to the margins, scarred and diminished and furious. The show is telling you something about gratitude and power that it will echo throughout the series. The people who do the actual work of governing, the people who make the hard decisions and take the risks, are never the people who get the glory. The glory goes to the people who arrive at the end and claim it. Meanwhile, across the sea, Daenerys is in Qarth, where she has come seeking ships and allies, and finds instead a city of merchants who want her dragons, and sorcerers who want her power. The Qarth storyline is often overlooked in discussions of the show, but it contains a moment that is essential to understanding Daenerys' arc. In the House of the Undying, Daenerys is shown a vision. She walks through the throne room of the Red Keep, destroyed, covered in ash or snow, the roof collapsed. She reaches for the Iron Throne. She almost touches it, and then she hears the cry of her dragons and turns away. The vision is a prophecy of the show's final episode, though nobody recognized it at the time. The destroyed throne room, the falling snow, the throne sitting empty. The show planted this image in Season 2 and did not pay it off until Season 8, 6 years later. That is the kind of long-game storytelling that made Game of Thrones unlike anything else on television. The War of the Five Kings is the engine that drives Seasons 2 through 4. It is complex and sprawling and involves dozens of characters making decisions that seem rational in the moment and catastrophic in hindsight. But the heart of it, the thing that makes it more than just a medieval military drama, is the way the show uses the war to examine power itself. Who has it? Who wants it, what it costs, and what it does to the people who acquire it. Robb Stark is the clearest example. He is a boy fighting a man's war, and he fights it brilliantly. He wins every battle. He captures Jaime Lannister, the most valuable prisoner in the Seven Kingdoms. His bannermen love him, his enemies fear him, but Robb makes two mistakes, and both of them are rooted in the same quality that killed his father: honor, decency, the belief that doing the right thing will lead to the right outcome. His first mistake is falling in love. Robb is promised to a daughter of Walder Frey, the Lord of the Twins, a bridge crossing that Robb needs in order to move his army south. The marriage alliance is the price of passage, but Robb meets Talisa, a healer from Volantis, and falls in love with her, and marries her instead. He follows his heart. He does what feels right, and he breaks a sacred oath to a man whose defining characteristic is that he never forgets a slight. His second mistake is executing Lord Karstark. After the Karstarks murder 2 Lannister prisoners in an act of revenge, Robb executes their lord for insubordination. It is the honorable thing to do, it is the just thing to do, and it costs Robb half his army, because the Karstark forces go home. These two decisions, the marriage and the execution, leave Robb in an impossible position. He has lost men, and he has broken his oath to Walder Frey. To repair the damage, he agrees to attend the wedding of his uncle Edmure Tully to one of Frey's daughters. He will go to the twins. He will apologize. He will make amends. He walks into a trap. The Reigns of Castamere is Season 3, Episode 9. It aired on June 2, 2013. It was written by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, and directed by David Nutter. It is one of the most watched, most discussed, and most emotionally devastating episodes of television ever produced. The episode holds a perfect 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes, with an average rating of 9.94 out of 10. And the reason it resonates so deeply is not the violence, it is the betrayal. The scene begins with music. The musicians in the gallery at the Twins begin playing The Rains of Castamere, the Lannister anthem, the song that celebrates Tywin Lannister's destruction of a rebellious house. Catelyn Stark hears it, she recognizes it, and in that moment she understands, 1 second too late, what is about to happen. She sees the chainmail beneath Roose Bolton's sleeve. She knows. She tries to warn Robb, and then the doors close. The Freys and the Boltons slaughter Robb's men. Talisa is stabbed repeatedly in the belly, killing her and her unborn child. Robb is shot with crossbow bolts. Catelyn, desperate, grabs Walder Frey's young wife and holds a knife to her throat, threatening to kill her if they harm Robb. Walder Frey looks at her and says, essentially, that he will find another wife. Roose Bolton walks up to Robb, says the Lannisters send their regards, and drives a knife into his heart. Catelyn screams. She cuts the girl's throat, and then her own throat is cut, and she falls, and the camera holds on the silence that follows. The show does not add music to tell you how to feel. It does not add a voiceover or a flashback or a moment of reflection. It just shows you the bodies, the blood on the floor, the empty hall, and then it cuts to black. The Red Wedding is the moment that defines Game of Thrones for a generation of viewers. But the thing most people miss is what it reveals about the show's thesis. Robb Stark did not die because he was weak. He died because he was good. He fell in love when he should have been strategic. He was just when he should have been pragmatic. He trusted when he should have been suspicious. Every quality that made him admirable made him vulnerable, and the show punishes those qualities with absolute brutality. That is not nihilism. That is a warning. The show is telling you that in a world where the rules are made by people like Tywin Lannister and Walder Frey, honor is not armor. It is a target. But the Red Wedding also reveals something about the people who planned it. Tywin Lannister arranged the massacre because it was efficient. Kill a few dozen men at a dinner and you end a war that might have dragged on for years. He tells Tyrion this in Season 3, Episode 10, Mycia, which aired on June 9, 2013. He frames it as mathematics, which is kinder, he asks, to kill 10,000 men in battle or a dozen at dinner. The logic is impeccable, the morality is monstrous, and the show lets you sit with both. But the Red Wedding is not the only story Season 3 tells. It is not even the most transformative one. That distinction belongs to two storylines that unfold in parallel and reshape two characters so completely that they become, by the end of the season, fundamentally different people than they were at the start. The first is Jaime Lannister. At the start of Season 3, Jaime is a prisoner, being escorted back to King's Landing by Brienne of Tarth, who has sworn an oath to Catelyn Stark to exchange him for Sansa and Arya. Jaime is arrogant, mocking, and utterly certain of his own superiority. He is the Kingslayer, the best swordsman in the Seven Kingdoms, the Golden Knight who has never had to reckon with the consequences of his name because his skill and his family have always protected him. Then the Boltons capture them, and in Walk of Punishment, Season 3, Episode 3, aired on April 14, 2013, Locke cuts off Jaime's sword hand. Not his left hand, his right hand. The hand that made him who he is. The hand that killed the Mad King. The hand that swung every sword, won every fight, defined every aspect of his identity. It is gone, and Jaime's entire sense of self collapses. What follows is one of the most profound character transformations in the series. Stripped of the thing that made him powerful, Jaime is forced to confront who he is without it. And what he discovers is that the man beneath the golden armor, beneath the Kingslayer reputation, beneath the cocky grin and the casual cruelty, is someone who cares about honor more than he has ever been willing to admit. In a bath at Harrenhal, in Kissed by Fire, Season 3, Episode 5, aired on April 28, 2013, Jaime tells Brienne the truth about why he killed Aerys. Not for ambition, not for his father, because Aerys was going to burn 500,000 people alive, and Jaime was the only person in a position to stop him. He broke his oath to save a city, and no one ever asked him why. They just called him Kingslayer and treated him as a cautionary tale about the price of dishonor. The confession scene in the bath is one of the best scenes in the entire series. Nikolai Coster-Waldau's performance strips Jaime down to his core. He is exhausted, feverish, vulnerable in a way he has never allowed himself to be. And Brienne, who has hated him, who has seen him as everything wrong with the world of knights and oaths, watches his face and begins to understand that the man she despises is, in some fundamental way, more honorable than the people who condemned him. The gap between reputation and reality is the gap where Jaime Lannister lives, and the show spends the rest of the series exploring whether he can ever close it. The second transformative storyline is Daenerys in Slaver's Bay. In Season 3, Daenerys arrives in Astapor, a city built on the slave trade, and purchases the Unsullied, an army of warrior eunuchs trained from childhood to obey without question. The transaction itself is one of the show's great set pieces. Daenerys agrees to trade one of her dragons for the entire army of 8,000 Unsullied. The Masters of Astapor believe they are getting the better deal. They are wrong, and now his watch has ended is Season 3, Episode 4. It aired on April 21, 2013. In the climactic scene, Daenerys hands over the dragon's chain, takes command of the Unsullied, and then speaks to the Masters in Valyrian, the language they assumed she did not understand. She has understood every insult, every slur, every degradation they directed at her. She orders the Unsullied to kill the Masters. She orders her dragon to burn them, Dracarys. The dragon breathes fire. The Masters die. Daenerys frees the Unsullied and asks them to fight for her as free men. The scene is electrifying. It is the first time Daenerys fully deploys both her dragons and her intelligence as weapons, and the combination is devastating. She outmaneuvered the slavers without raising a sword. She freed an army and gained its loyalty in a single stroke, and the crowd of newly freed slaves looks up at her and begins to chant, Mysa, Mother. But the show is careful here. It gives you the thrill of liberation, the catharsis of seeing slavers destroyed and slaves freed, and then it immediately begins to complicate it. Daenerys does not leave Slaver's Bay after taking Astapor. She stays. She conquers Yunkai. She conquers Meereen. She installs herself as ruler. And governing, it turns out, is infinitely harder than conquering. The Masters she defeated regroup. The former slaves struggle to build new lives. Violence erupts. Insurgent groups called the Sons of the Harpy begin attacking her soldiers. And Daenerys discovers the terrible truth that every conqueror eventually discovers. It is easy to break chains. It is almost impossible to build a society that does not need them. This struggle, Daenerys' attempt to rule Meereen, occupies seasons 4, 5, and 6, and it is the crucible that shapes everything she does when she finally reaches Westeros. In Meereen, Daenerys learns that her instinct for dramatic, fire-driven justice does not translate into good governance. She learns that moral certainty is not the same as wisdom. She learns that the people she liberates do not always love her for it. These are the lessons she needs. And by the time she crosses the Narrow Sea, the show has established, quietly and patiently, that Daenerys' relationship with power is more complicated than the crowd at Astapor would suggest. There is also the matter of Margaery Tyrell, who is one of the most underappreciated players in the game. Margaery understands something that almost no other character in the show grasps. Power does not come from the throne, it comes from the people. She visits orphanages, she feeds the poor, she smiles at the small folk and touches their hands and remembers their names. And she does this not because she is kind, though she may be, but because she understands that popular support is the most durable form of power in a world where armies can be defeated and gold can run out, and alliances can shift overnight. The common people love Margaery. They cheer when she walks through the streets, and that love is a kind of armor that neither Cersei nor Joffrey can pierce. Margaery marries 3 kings. She marries Renly, who is killed by a shadow. She marries Joffrey, who is poisoned at their wedding. She marries Tommen, who jumps from a window after her death. 3 kings, 3 marriages, 3 catastrophes. And through all of it, Margaery maintains her composure, her strategy, her relentless pursuit of the crown. She is not a passive figure being passed from husband to husband. She is an active player, choosing her alliances, managing her image, building her power base. And when the Faith militant arrests her, she adapts. She pretends to convert. She plays the High Sparrow's game while plotting her escape. She is the only person in the Sept who sees the wildfire coming. She knows. She shouts at everyone to leave. And the doors are barred, and the candles are burning, and Margaery Tyrell, the best player in the game, dies because Cersei decided to stop playing the game entirely and just burn the board. That is the thing about Cersei. She does not outplay her opponents. She changes the game. When the rules do not favor her, she eliminates the rules. When the institutions constrain her, she eliminates the institutions. The destruction of the Sept is not a strategic move. It is an abdication of strategy altogether. It is Cersei saying, "I cannot win this game, so I will end it." And the show frames this as both a victory and a catastrophe, because the ability to destroy everything is not power. It is the absence of power. It is what you do when you have nothing left but rage and wildfire, and the willingness to lose everything in order to make your enemies lose more. Season 4 picks up in the aftermath. Two Swords aired on April 6, 2014, and the opening image tells you everything. The Stark ancestral sword, Ice, the blade that Ned Stark carried and that was used to execute him, is melted down and reforged into two smaller swords. Tywin Lannister watches the Valyrian steel being shaped by the flames, a small smile on his face. The Stark legacy, the Stark identity, is being consumed and repurposed by the Lannisters. The symbolism is unmistakable. The old order is dead, the Lannisters have won, and they are rewriting history with the spoils. But Season 4 is the season where the Lannister victory begins to rot from the inside. It starts with a wedding. The Lion and the Rose, Season 4, Episode 2, aired on April 13, 2014. Joffrey Baratheon marries Margaery Tyrell. The wedding is lavish, grotesque, and perfectly in character. Joffrey humiliates Tyrion throughout the feast, forcing him to serve as his cupbearer, pouring wine over his head, tormenting him in front of the entire court. And then Joffrey takes a sip of wine, and his face turns purple, and he chokes, and he dies in his mother's arms, clawing at his own throat while blood pours from his eyes. In the purple wedding, not the color of royalty, the color of suffocation. Cersei immediately blames Tyrion. Of course she does. She has hated Tyrion his entire life, blamed him for their mother's death and childbirth, seen him as a stunted, grotesque mockery of the Lannister name. The fact that Tyrion is actually innocent does not matter. What matters is that Cersei has a target for her grief, and she will destroy him. Tyrion's trial is one of the great sequences in the entire series. The Laws of Gods and Men is Season 4, Episode 6. It aired on May 11, 2014. Tyrion stands before three judges, his father Tywin, Oberyn Martell, and Mace Tyrell. Witness after witness testifies against him. His own lover, Shae, whom he had sent away to protect her, appears and lies about him, turning every private moment of tenderness into evidence of conspiracy. The trial is a farce. The verdict is predetermined, and Tyrion, who has spent his entire life using his mind to compensate for his body, who has survived by being cleverer than everyone around him, stands in the throne room and delivers a speech that strips away every pretense. He does not confess to killing Joffrey. He confesses to the crime of being a dwarf, because that is the only crime anyone has ever truly charged him with. He says he is guilty. He has been guilty since the day he was born. He wishes he had enough poison for the whole pack of them, and then he demands a trial by combat. The Mountain and the Viper is Season 4, Episode 8. It aired on June 1, 2014. Tyrion's champion is Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper of Dorne, who has his own reasons for fighting. Oberyn's sister was Elia Martell, Rhaegar's wife, the woman raped and murdered by the Mountain during the sack of King's Landing. Oberyn has waited 20 years for this chance. He does not want to just kill the Mountain. He wants the Mountain to confess. He wants the world to hear Gregor Clegane say the names of the people he murdered. The fight itself is a masterpiece of choreography and emotion. Oberyn is faster, more skilled, more graceful. He dances around the Mountain, stabbing him with a poisoned spear, opening wounds that would kill any normal man. And he keeps asking, he keeps demanding. You raped her, you murdered her, you killed her children. Say her name, say it. Elia Martell. The Mountain falls. Oberyn has won. All he has to do is finish it. But he needs the confession more than he needs the victory. He gets too close. The Mountain grabs him, pulls him down, and kills him in the most horrific way the show has depicted up to this point. Gregor Clegane confesses as he does it, pressing his thumbs into Oberyn's eyes and crushing his skull with his bare hands, repeating the names, Elia Martell, her children, saying the words Oberyn wanted to hear while taking everything from him. Tyrion is sentenced to death, but his brother Jaime, the one person in the Lannister family who genuinely loves him, arranges his escape, and on his way out of King's Landing, Tyrion takes a detour. He finds Shae in his father's bed. He strangles her, then he finds Tywin on the privy and shoots him with a crossbow, twice. The Children, Season 4, Episode 10, aired on June 15, 2014. Tyrion kills his father and flees Westeros, and the most powerful man in the Seven Kingdoms dies on the toilet, killed by the son he despised, and the show does not play it for comedy or for tragedy. It plays it for what it is. A reckoning, the bill for a lifetime of cruelty, finally paid. Season 4 also ends with Arya Stark boarding a ship to Braavos, leaving Westeros behind. She carries a coin given to her by Jaqen H'ghar, a faceless man she met in Season 2. She speaks the words Valar Morghulis, all men must die, and she sails east, toward a different kind of education, one that will teach her to become no one so that she can become the most dangerous version of herself. But Arya's journey to Braavos does not begin in Season 4's finale. It begins much earlier, with the Hound. From late Season 2 through the end of Season 4, Arya travels with a series of unlikely companions who each teach her something essential. First Yoren of the Night's Watch, who saves her at Ned's execution. Then Jaqen H'ghar, who shows her that death can be wielded with precision. Then the Brotherhood Without Banners, who show her that justice is arbitrary and power corrupts even good men. And finally the Hound. The Hound captures Arya in The Rains of Castamere, the same episode as the Red Wedding, intending to ransom her to the Starks. By the time they arrive at the Twins, the Starks are dead. The Hound keeps Arya, intending to sell her to her Aunt Lysa in the Vale. They travel together across the war-torn Riverlands, and their dynamic is one of the most compelling relationships in the series. They despise each other. Arya has the Hound on her kill list. The Hound thinks Arya is a nuisance, and yet they keep each other alive. They are bound together by circumstance and, gradually, by something neither of them would admit is loyalty. The Hound teaches Arya pragmatism. He teaches her that the world is brutal, and that survival requires brutality. He kills without hesitation and without remorse, and he forces Arya to confront the gap between the noble ideals she grew up with and the savage reality of life in Westeros. But Arya teaches the Hound something too. She teaches him that caring about someone is not a weakness. He protects her. He fights for her. He denies that he cares, but his actions say otherwise. By the time Brienne of Tarth finds them in the Season 4 finale and fights the Hound to claim Arya, the relationship has become something neither of them expected. A partnership, an education, a bond. Brienne defeats the Hound and leaves him dying on a hillside. Arya finds him. He asks her to kill him. He begs her. She is on his list, he tells her, so finish it. And Arya looks at him, at the man who has been her captor and her protector and her teacher, and she does nothing. She takes his silver and walks away. She does not give him the mercy of a quick death. And the show leaves you uncertain whether this is cruelty or its opposite. Is she punishing him by letting him suffer? Or is she refusing to put him on the same list as the people she truly hates? The ambiguity is the point. Arya and the Hound will meet again, in Seasons 7 and 8, and their reunion will carry all the weight of this unresolved moment. He will call her a cold little bitch, and she will almost smile, and the audience will understand that this is how these two people express something they cannot name. But before we leave Season 4, there are two more storylines that need attention. The first is Sansa Stark. Sansa has spent 3 seasons as a hostage in King's Landing, enduring Joffrey's cruelty, Cersei's contempt, and the constant, suffocating awareness that she is alive only because she is useful. After Joffrey's death, Littlefinger smuggles her out of the city, and for a brief moment, it seems like Sansa is finally free. But Littlefinger does not rescue people out of kindness. He rescues them because they are assets. He takes Sansa to the Eyrie, where her Aunt Lysa rules as Lady of the Vale, and the dynamics that unfold there reveal Littlefinger's true nature more clearly than any scene that has come before. Lysa Arryn is jealous, paranoid, and desperately in love with Littlefinger. She has been in love with him since they were children, and she has done terrible things for that love. It was Lysa, at Littlefinger's instruction, who poisoned Jon Arryn. It was Lysa who sent the letter to Catelyn blaming the Lannisters. The event that started the entire chain of catastrophe, the death of Jon Arryn, was not a Lannister plot at all. It was Littlefinger. From the beginning. From before the beginning, Petyr Baelish has been the invisible hand pushing the pieces across the board, starting wars that other men fight and die in, amassing power while everyone around him bleeds. When Lysa threatens to throw Sansa from the moon door, Littlefinger intervenes. He tells Lysa he has only ever loved one woman, her sister, Cat, and then he pushes Lysa through the moon door himself. The second storyline is The Wall. Season 4, Episode 9, The Watchers on the Wall, aired on June 8, 2014. The wildlings attack Castle Black from both sides, a massive force led by Mance Rayder from the north, and a smaller raiding party from the south. Jon Snow leads the defense. The battle is fierce and costly. Several characters die, including Ygritte, the wildling woman Jon loved, and who loved him, and who died in his arms with an arrow in her chest. Their relationship was one of the most genuine things in the show, a connection that transcended the lines drawn by the wall, and it ended the way everything in Game of Thrones ends. With loss. The wildling assault is repelled but not defeated. Mance has 100,000 fighters. The Night's Watch has barely 100 men left. Jon goes north to negotiate, and while he is in Mance's tent, Stannis arrives with his cavalry, charging through the wildling camp and scattering the free folk. It is Stannis' finest hour as a military commander, and it comes not in the pursuit of the Iron Throne, but in defense of the realm. For a moment, just a moment, Stannis is the king Westeros needs. He does his duty. He defends the wall, and then he goes south again, chasing the crown, and the moment passes. There is a version of Stannis that the show hints at but never fully reveals. A version where he stays at the wall, where he devotes himself to the fight against the dead, where his iron sense of duty finds its true purpose. The show lets you glimpse the man Stannis could have been, and then it shows you the man he actually is, and the distance between the two is where his tragedy lives. Season 5 is the season where the world of Game of Thrones expands to its fullest extent, and where the consequences of the wars that came before begin to settle into new and more dangerous configurations. The Wars to Come aired on April 12, 2015, and the title itself is a warning. The old wars are over, the Starks are scattered, the Lannisters hold King's Landing, but are weaker than they appear, and new conflicts are rising, in places the show has not yet taken us. In King's Landing, Cersei is unraveling. With Tywin dead and Tyrion fled, she is, for the first time, the most powerful Lannister, and she uses that power badly. She arms the Faith Militant, a religious order devoted to the faith of the Seven, as a weapon against the Tyrells. She gives the High Sparrow, a humble and apparently sincere religious leader, the authority to arrest and punish sinners. She does this to destroy Margaery Tyrell, who has married her son Tommen, and is, in Cersei's eyes, stealing her last remaining child. But Cersei has forgotten the first rule of the Game of Thrones timeline: weapons turn on their creators. The Faith Militant does not just arrest Margaery and her brother Loras, they arrest Cersei herself. Her sins are just as damning. Her incest with Jaime. Her adultery, her arrogance, the weapon she built to destroy her enemy, destroys her instead, and Cersei finds herself imprisoned in a cell beneath the Great Sept, stripped of her power, stripped of her dignity, forced to confess her sins before the same fanatics she empowered. The 5th season's 9th episode, The Dance of Dragons, aired on June 7, 2015, and contains one of the most disturbing scenes in the entire series. Stannis Baratheon, who has marched his army north to take Winterfell from the Boltons, is trapped in a blizzard. His supplies are dwindling, his men are deserting, and Melisandre, the Red Priestess who has guided his campaign, tells him there is only one way to ensure victory. He must sacrifice his daughter Shireen to the Lord of Light. Stannis does it. He ties his own daughter to a pyre and burns her alive. The show holds on Shireen's screams, it holds on Stannis' face, it holds on Selyse, Shireen's mother, who supported the sacrifice until the moment it happened, and then tried to stop it, running toward the flames before being restrained. The scene is not designed to shock. It is designed to show you what power does to a person who believes they deserve it. Stannis is not evil. He is a man who has convinced himself that his cause is righteous, that his claim is just, that the ends justify any means. And that belief, that certainty, leads him to burn his own child. The sacrifice does not work. Stannis' army is routed by the Boltons. Half his men desert after the burning. Stannis marches on Winterfell with a fraction of his force and is destroyed. The show dispatches him almost casually, his great ambition ending not with a dramatic battle, but with a quiet execution in the woods, at the hands of Brienne of Tarth, who has her own reasons for wanting him dead. She swore an oath to avenge Renly. She has carried that oath for 3 seasons, and she fulfills it in the quiet of a winter forest, with no audience and no glory, just a woman, a sword, and a promise kept. Stannis' death is the end of the Baratheon line. Robert died in Season 1, Renly died in Season 2, Stannis dies in Season 5. 3 brothers, 3 kings, all dead. The house that won the throne through rebellion cannot hold it. The Baratheons are a cautionary tale about what happens when you define your identity by a single claim, a single right, a single act of defiance. Robert won the throne and then had nothing left to fight for, so he drank and hunted and let the kingdom rot. Renly believed his charm and popularity entitled him to the crown, and a shadow killed him. Stannis believed the law was on his side and that divine favor confirmed his destiny, and he burned his daughter and lost everything. Each brother took a different path to the same throne, and each path ended in death. There is also Sansa Stark's storyline in Season 5, which remains one of the most controversial decisions the show ever made. Littlefinger arranges a marriage between Sansa and Ramsay Bolton, delivering her into the hands of the most sadistic character in the series. The wedding night scene, in Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken, Season 5, Episode 6, aired on May 17, 2015, is brutal. Ramsay assaults Sansa, while Theon is forced to watch. The scene drew enormous criticism. Many viewers felt the show was using sexual violence for shock value, subjecting a beloved character to trauma for the sake of drama. The debate about this scene is legitimate and important, and this video essay is not going to resolve it. What the scene does within the timeline, however, is this. It gives Sansa a reason to fight that goes beyond politics or strategy. It transforms her from a player in other people's games into someone with her own cause, her own fury, her own agenda. Everything Sansa does in Seasons 6, 7, and 8 flows from what Ramsay did to her. Her escape from Winterfell with Theon, her alliance with Jon, her decision to summon the Knights of the Vale, her refusal to trust Daenerys, her demand for northern independence. Sansa's political acumen in the later seasons is not something the show gives her for free. It is something she earns through suffering, and whether the show was right to use that specific kind of suffering to motivate her growth is a question the audience has to answer for itself. Tyrion, meanwhile, has fled to Essos and found Daenerys. His journey from King's Landing to Meereen takes him through wine barrels and whorehouses and a kidnapping by Jorah Mormont, who captures Tyrion and brings him to Daenerys as a gift, hoping to buy his way back into her favor. Jorah has been banished for spying on Daenerys in Season 1, and he has spent the intervening seasons trying to earn redemption. He brings Tyrion to Daenerys' court, and instead of the execution he expects, Daenerys listens. Tyrion is the former Hand of the King. He knows the politics of Westeros better than anyone in her entourage. He understands the great houses, the military landscape, the economy, and he is, despite everything, one of the smartest people in the world. Daenerys makes Tyrion her hand. It is one of the most significant alliances in the series, and it tells you something about both characters. Daenerys is willing to trust a Lannister, the son of the man who orchestrated the murder of her father's people, because she recognizes his value. Tyrion is willing to serve a Targaryen, the daughter of the king his family helped overthrow, because he believes she can be the ruler the world needs. Their alliance is built not on love or loyalty, but on a shared belief that things can be better, that the wheel can be broken, that power does not have to corrupt. And the tragedy of the final season is watching that belief curdle, watching Tyrion's faith in Daenerys crack and fracture as she makes decisions that echo the very tyranny they set out to end. Meanwhile, at the Wall, Jon Snow is making decisions that will get him killed. Hard Home is Season 5, Episode 8. It aired on May 31st, 2015, and it is, until that point, the most terrifying episode the show has ever produced. Jon travels to Hard Home, a wildling settlement beyond the Wall, to negotiate an alliance between the Night's Watch and the Free Folk. His argument is simple. The White Walkers are coming. They cannot be stopped by any one group. The only chance is to bring the wildlings south of the Wall, where they can fight alongside the Night's Watch rather than be killed and added to the army of the dead. Many of the wildlings agree, but before they can finish evacuating, the army of the dead arrives, and the sequence that follows is unlike anything the show has done before. Thousands of whites pour over the cliffs and into the settlement. The battle is chaos. The wildlings fight with everything they have, and it is not enough. The dead keep coming. They always keep coming. And Jon Snow, in the middle of the slaughter, discovers something crucial. Valyrian steel can kill White Walkers. He clashes with a White Walker officer, and his sword, Longclaw, shatters the creature into ice. But the moment that defines Hard Home is the ending. Jon and the surviving wildlings retreat to the boats. They push off from shore, and they watch as the Night King, the leader of the White Walkers, walks to the edge of the dock, raises his arms, and every dead wildling on the beach stands up. Thousands of corpses, rising in unison, their eyes glowing blue. The Night King stares at Jon Snow across the water, and Jon stares back, and neither of them looks away. The show does not add music, it does not add dialogue, it just holds on the silence and the cold, and the dead standing on the shore. And in that moment, every political conflict in the Seven Kingdoms, every war over the Iron Throne, every scheme and betrayal and murder becomes utterly, terrifyingly small. Arya Stark's storyline in Season 5 takes her to Braavos, to the House of Black and White, where the faceless men serve the many-faced god. The House of Black and White is Season 5, Episode 2, aired on April 19, 2015. Arya arrives at the temple expecting training, expecting weapons and techniques, and the tools of vengeance. What she gets instead is lessons in surrender. The faceless men do not serve themselves. They serve death. To become one of them, Arya must give up her identity, her name, her desires, her list of people she wants to kill. She must become no one. Arya tries. She scrubs floors. She washes bodies. She lies about who she is. But she cannot let go. She cannot release the list. The names she whispers before sleep: Cersei, Walder Frey, the Mountain, the names of the people who destroyed her family, are not just targets. They are the architecture of her identity. They are the only thing she has left. And the faceless men know this. Jaqen H'ghar knows this. The training is not just about skills. It is about whether Arya Stark can be erased, and the answer, which the show reveals slowly over 2 seasons, is no. Arya can learn the skills of the faceless men. She can learn to change her face, to fight blind, to move in silence, but she cannot become no one, because the thing that makes her dangerous is not her training, it is her rage. It is her love. It is the fact that she is, irrevocably and permanently, Arya Stark of Winterfell. The show tests this in Season 6 with the Waif, a fellow trainee who sees Arya's inability to fully commit and resents it. The Waif hunts Arya through the streets of Braavos, stabbing her, chasing her, trying to kill her. And Arya defeats her in darkness, in a room where she has the advantage, because she spent weeks fighting blind. She cuts the candle, the light goes out, and the next time we see the Waif's face, it is mounted on the wall of the Hall of Faces, eyes gouged out, another mask in the collection. Arya brings the face to Jaqen. He tells her she has finally become no one, and Arya looks at him and says, "A girl is Arya Stark of Winterfell, and I am going home." That line is the turning point of Arya's entire arc. It is the moment she reclaims herself. She has taken what the faceless men taught her, and rejected what they demanded in return. She is not no one. She is someone. She is a Stark, and she is going home to use everything she learned in service of the family she never stopped loving, even when she was pretending to be dead. And then there is Cersei's Walk of Shame, Mother's Mercy, the Season 5 finale, aired on June 14, 2015, and it contains this scene alongside several other pivotal moments, making it one of the densest episodes in the series. Cersei, in order to secure her release from the faith, confesses to the sin of fornication and agrees to walk naked from the Sept to the Red Keep, while the common people of King's Landing watch. A Septa walks behind her, ringing a bell and chanting, "Shame, shame, shame." The scene is long. Deliberately, agonizingly long. Cersei walks through the streets while people jeer, spit, throw food, and worse at her. She begins the walk with her chin up, defiant, trying to maintain her dignity. By the end, she is bleeding, filthy, weeping, stumbling through the gates of the Red Keep, and collapsing into the arms of Qyburn. The walk is designed to break her. It is designed to humiliate the most powerful woman in the Seven Kingdoms and remind her that her power is borrowed, contingent, revocable. But the show does something unexpected with this scene. It makes you feel for Cersei. Not sympathize with her choices, not forgive her crimes, but feel for her as a human being subjected to public degradation. The walk strips away everything that makes Cersei monstrous, and leaves only a woman, naked and alone, walking through a crowd that hates her. And the fury that this walk plants in Cersei, the absolute, white-hot determination to never be vulnerable again, is what leads directly to the destruction of the Great Sept 1 season later. The walk does not humble Cersei, it radicalizes her. The weapon the faith used against her creates the very monster that will destroy them. Sit with that for a moment. The pattern holds once more. The children made the White Walkers. Cersei armed the faith. The faith humiliated Cersei. and Cersei burned them all. The cycle does not end, it accelerates. Jon returns to Castle Black with the wildlings, and the men of the Night's Watch hate him for it. They see him as a traitor. He let the enemy through the gates. He chose the wildlings over his own brothers. And in the Season 5 finale Mother's Mercy, they act. Alliser Thorne and a group of conspirators lure Jon outside under the pretense that a wildling has information about his missing uncle Benjen Stark. Jon follows them into the courtyard. He finds a wooden sign that reads traitor, and then, one by one, the men of the Night's Watch take turns driving their knives into him. Each one says the same words, "For the Watch." Thorne stabs him, others follow, and finally Ollie, the boy Jon had taken under his wing, the boy whose family was killed by wildlings, steps forward and delivers the final blow. Jon Snow falls to the ground. His blood pools in the snow, his eyes go dark, and the screen cuts to black. That is not the behavior of someone who believes in mercy. That is the behavior of men who have confused duty with murder and tradition with righteousness. The Night's Watch killed the only man who understood the true enemy, because understanding the true enemy required making peace with a lesser one, and they could not do it. They could not see past their hatred long enough to recognize that Jon was the only thing standing between them and extinction. Season 6 opens with Jon Snow dead on the ground at Castle Black. The Red Woman aired on April 24, 2016, and the episode's title refers to Melisandre, who has arrived at Castle Black after Stannis' defeat. The episode ends with a reveal. Melisandre, alone in her chambers, removes her choker, and her glamour falls away. She is not a young woman. She is ancient, centuries old, kept alive and beautiful by the magic of the Lord of Light. The reveal is not plot critical in the immediate sense, but it tells you something about the show's relationship with faith and magic, and the gap between appearance and reality. The most powerful advocate for the Lord of Light is sustained by illusion. The question the show is asking is whether the power behind the illusion is real, even if the face presenting it is a lie. Jon Snow is resurrected in Home, Season 6, Episode 2, which aired on May 1, 2016. Davos asks Melisandre to try. She does not believe she can do it. She has lost her faith. Stannis is dead. Her prophecies were wrong. But she washes Jon's body, cuts his hair, speaks the words, and waits. Nothing happens. The room empties. The camera holds on Jon's body, and then, just when the silence has become unbearable, he gasps. His eyes fly open. He breathes. Jon Snow comes back from the dead. And the man who comes back is different from the man who died. The show is careful about this. It does not turn Jon into a superhero or a prophet or a man touched by divine purpose. It makes him tired, quieter, more cautious. He tells Dolorous Edd that he did what he thought was right, and he got murdered for it. There is a weariness in Kit Harington's performance in Season 6 that anchors every scene. Jon is not grateful to be alive. He is carrying the weight of having been dead, of having seen whatever lies beyond, and of having been pulled back from it. The Door is Season 6, Episode 5. It aired on May 22, 2016. This is the episode that reveals the origin of the White Walkers, but it is remembered for something else. In the present, the Night King and his army attack the cave of the Three-Eyed Raven. Bran is in a vision, connected to the past. Mira Reed screams for him to warg into Hodor so they can escape, and in the vision, young Bran reaches out to the past version of Hodor, a stable boy named Wylis, and something goes wrong. The connection between past and present crosses. Wylis collapses, seizing, and begins screaming the same words over and over. Hold the door, hold the door, hold the door. The words blur together. Hold the door, Hodor, Hodor, Hodor. In the present, the adult Hodor holds the door of the cave shut against the army of the dead, while Bran and Mira escape. He braces himself against it. The Whites claw through, and Hodor holds the door. He holds it until they kill him. He holds it because he has been holding it his entire life, because the moment of his death reached back through time and broke his mind as a child, leaving him with nothing but the echo of his final act. Hold the door. That is the whole story of Hodor. A gentle man, destroyed by a future he could not escape, who spent his entire life walking toward the moment of his own sacrifice without ever knowing it. The show does not comment on this. It does not add a voiceover. It does not explain the metaphysics. It just shows you a man dying against a door and a boy screaming in the past, and it trusts you to understand the horror of it. The horror is not the death. The horror is the inevitability. Hodor was never free. He was never going to be free. His entire existence was shaped by a single purpose, and that purpose was to die so that someone else could live. Let that sit for a moment. Season 6 builds toward two of the most spectacular episodes the show has ever produced. Battle of the Bastards is Season 6, Episode 9. It aired on June 19, 2016. Jon Snow and Sansa Stark have reunited and gathered what allies they can to retake Winterfell from Ramsay Bolton, the sadistic bastard who has been torturing, raping, and terrorizing the North since he took control. The battle itself is one of the most visceral combat sequences ever filmed for television. Jon is nearly crushed in oppressive bodies, buried under a mound of the dead and dying, clawing his way back to the surface. The scene is shot to induce claustrophobia, the camera trapped at ground level, surrounded by mud and blood, and the sounds of men dying. Ramsay retreats behind Winterfell's walls, confident that his position is impregnable, and then the horns sound. The Knights of the Vale arrive, summoned by Sansa, who sent a raven to Littlefinger without telling Jon. The cavalry smashes through Ramsay's forces. The gates are battered down. Jon beats Ramsay into unconsciousness with his bare fists, and only stops because he sees Sansa watching. Ramsay's death comes later, in the kennels, where Sansa feeds him to his own starving hounds. The dogs he used to terrorize and murder his victims eat him alive. Sansa watches. She does not look away. She smiles. That is not revenge. That is a woman reclaiming the power that was taken from her, using the instruments of her own torture to destroy the man who tortured her. The show is revealing something about Sansa Stark that none of her speeches ever do. She has learned. She has changed. She is no longer the naive girl who wanted to marry a prince and live in a fairy tale. She is someone who understands that in this world, mercy is a luxury, and the people who survive are the ones who know when not to extend it. The Winds of Winter is Season 6, Episode 10, the season finale. It aired on June 26, 2016. The episode runs 69 minutes, and the first 20 of those minutes are among the most masterfully constructed sequences in television history. The sequence begins with silence. A piano plays. The camera cuts between the Great Sept of Baelor, where Cersei's trial is about to begin, and the Red Keep, where Cersei is dressing. She puts on a gown of black and silver. She pours herself a glass of wine. She is calm. She is not going to her trial because she is not planning to be tried. Beneath the Sept, her agents, Qyburn's little birds, the child spies who serve the former maester, lead Lancel Lannister into the tunnels. He finds the candles burning low above pools of wildfire, the same caches that the Mad King placed beneath the city, the ones Jaime killed Aerys to prevent from being ignited. Lancel tries to reach the candles. He crawls across the floor, wounded by a child's knife. He reaches out. He is too late. The wildfire detonates. The Great Sept of Baelor explodes in a column of green fire. Everyone inside dies. Marjorie Tyrell, Loras Tyrell, Mace Tyrell, the High Sparrow, Kevin Lannister, Cersei's uncle, hundreds of faithful. The Sept itself, the holiest building in the Seven Kingdoms, is reduced to rubble and ash. Cersei watches from the Red Keep. She sips her wine. And then her last child, Tommen, who has just seen his wife die, who has just watched the building where he was crowned consumed by fire, walks to the window of his chamber, removes his crown, and steps out. He falls without a sound. Cersei's face when she sees his body is the only moment in the sequence where the mask slips. She stares at him. She tells Qyburn to burn the body and bury the ashes where the Sept once stood, and then she walks to the throne room, and Qyburn crowns her. Cersei Lannister, first of her name, Queen of the Andals and the First Men, protector of the Seven Kingdoms. She destroyed the most powerful religious institution in Westeros. She killed her own allies and her own family. She drove her last child to suicide, and she sits on the Iron Throne as if she earned it, because in her mind, she did. Every sacrifice, every loss, every monstrous act was the price of the chair, and she paid it. The show does not judge her in this moment. It does not tell you how to feel. It just shows you a woman on a throne in an empty room, and it lets the silence speak. There is a scene later in the same episode that is just as important, though it is quieter and easier to miss. In the Tower of Joy, in a vision, Bran watches his father Ned arrive to find his sister Lyanna dying in a bed of blood. She has just given birth. She whispers to Ned. The words are not fully audible, but the meaning is clear. She asks him to protect the child. "Promise me, Ned," she says. The camera pans to the baby's face, And then the show cuts to a close-up of Jon Snow's face, grown, staring into the middle distance. The implication is unmistakable. Jon Snow is not Ned Stark's bastard son. He is the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. He is a Targaryen. He has a claim to the Iron Throne that supersedes every other claim in Westeros, and Ned Stark, the most honorable man in the Seven Kingdoms, carried this secret for 17 years, letting the world believe he had fathered a bastard, rather than risk Robert Baratheon discovering the truth and killing the child. Ned's honor was never about being perfect. It was about protecting the people he loved, even when it meant letting the world think less of him. That is a very different Ned Stark than the one most people remember, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. There is one more piece of Season 6 that deserves attention before we move forward, and it is Daenerys' departure from Meereen. After spending the better part of 3 seasons trying to rule Slaver's Bay, after the siege of Meereen and the burning of the Slavers' fleet in Battle of the Bastards, Daenerys finally has what she needs to cross the narrow sea. She has the Unsullied. She has the Dothraki, who rallied to her after she burned the Khals alive in Book of the Stranger, Season 6, Episode 4, aired on May 15, 2016. She has the Greyjoy fleet, brought by Yara and Theon. She has the support of the Tyrells, brokered by Varys. And she has 3 dragons, fully grown, the most devastating weapon the world has seen in over a century. The final shots of Season 6 show Daenerys' armada sailing west toward Westeros. It is a fleet that stretches to the horizon. It is the culmination of 6 seasons of wandering, fighting, failing, learning, and rising. And the expression on Daenerys' face as she stands at the prow of the ship is not triumph. It is resolve. She is going home. She has never been home. She was born on Dragonstone during a storm, and spirited away as an infant. She has no memories of Westeros. She has only the stories, the claim, the name. She is sailing toward a place she has never been, to sit on a throne she has never seen, to rule people she has never met. And she believes, with absolute certainty, that this is her destiny, that the people of Westeros will welcome her, that she will break the wheel. She is wrong, but she does not know that yet. And the tragedy of Daenerys Targaryen is that by the time she learns it, she will have already made the choices that cannot be undone. Arya's look at the Riverlands also carries tremendous weight in Season 6. She returns to Westeros, arrives at the Twins, and kills Walder Frey. The Winds of Winter gives us this scene. She serves Frey a pie made from his own sons, Black Walder and Lothar, the men who carried out the Red Wedding. She reveals herself. She cuts his throat. It is a cold, precise execution, and the show frames it as justice, but there is something in Maisie Williams' performance that goes beyond justice. There is something that looks like pleasure. Arya has crossed a line that the show will spend the next 2 seasons examining. She has become someone who is capable of extraordinary violence, and who has, on some level, learned to enjoy it. The question the show asks, and never quite answers, is whether Arya can come back from that. Whether the girl who wanted to be a water dancer can survive inside the woman who bakes people into pies. Season 7 compresses the timeline. The show's pace accelerates. Storylines that spent years developing begin to converge, and characters who have never shared a screen are suddenly in the same room. Dragonstone aired on July 16, 2017, and the season premiere opens with one of the most satisfying cold opens the show has produced. Walder Frey, who died at the end of Season 6, murdered by Arya Stark, appears to host a feast for his sons. He toasts them, they drink, and they die, every one of them, poisoned. Arya removes the face, revealing herself, and tells the surviving women to tell the world that the North remembers. Justice. Not mercy, not forgiveness. Justice. Delivered by a girl who has spent 5 seasons learning how to kill and has returned home to use that education on the people who destroyed her family. The show lets this feel good. It lets you enjoy it. And then, over the rest of the season, it asks you to think about what it costs a person to become this efficient at ending lives. Season 7 also features Daenerys' arrival in Westeros, and the moment she steps onto the beach at Dragonstone and kneels to touch the sand is one of the most emotionally charged moments in the series. She has been talking about going home for 6 seasons. Every speech, every battle, every alliance, every sacrifice has been in service of this moment, and when it comes, it is quiet. She does not give a speech. She does not raise a banner. She kneels in the sand and touches the ground, and her face is unreadable, and the silence stretches, and the audience understands that this woman has walked across a continent, and crossed a sea, and hatched dragons from stone, and freed cities and built armies, and now she is home, and home is an empty beach on an island she left as an infant. The gap between what she expected and what she finds is the gap where the rest of the story lives. Daenerys lands on Dragonstone with 3 dragons, the largest army in the world, and the support of the Tyrells, and the Martells, and the Greyjoys. She should win easily. But Cersei is a more cunning opponent than anyone expects, and Daenerys' allies are picked off one by one. Euron Greyjoy destroys Yara's fleet in Stormborn, Season 7, Episode 2, aired on July 23, 2017, capturing Ilaria Sand and the Sand Snakes in the process. Jaime takes Highgarden and the Tyrell wealth. The Unsullied capture Casterly Rock but find it empty, a hollow victory that leaves them stranded on the wrong side of the continent. The fall of Highgarden gives us one of the finest scenes in the entire series, and it belongs to Olenna Tyrell. The Queen's Justice is Season 7, Episode 3, aired on July 30th, 2017. Jaime enters Olenna's chambers after the battle. The castle has fallen. The Tyrell army is destroyed. Olenna knows she is going to die. Jaime pours her a glass of wine and drops poison into it. He tells her it will be painless. She drinks it all at once. And then, with the poison already in her veins, she tells Jaime the truth. She killed Joffrey. She arranged the poison at the Purple Wedding. She watched the boy die and felt nothing but satisfaction. Tell Cersei, she says. I want her to know it was me. The scene is a masterclass in how to die with power. Olenna has lost everything. Her house, her grandchildren, her army, her wealth. She is a dead woman sitting in a chair, and yet she controls the scene completely. She takes the poison on her own terms. She delivers a confession that will torment Cersei for the rest of her life, and she does it all with a calm, cutting precision that makes Jaime look like a guest in her chambers rather than her executioner. Diana Rigg's performance in this scene is extraordinary. She plays Olenna as a woman who has already mourned and moved past mourning, who has nothing left to lose, and therefore nothing left to fear, and who uses her last moments to plant a thorn in the Lannisters that will never stop hurting. Olenna Tyrell is one of the show's great secondary characters precisely because the show never tries to make her sympathetic. She is manipulative, ruthless, and entirely self-serving. She arranged the murder of a king to protect her granddaughter. She allied with Daenerys not out of idealism but out of revenge. She is not a good person, but she is honest about what she is, which is more than can be said for most of the players in the game. And her death scene, her final act of defiance, is one of the most satisfying moments the show has produced, because it proves that even in defeat, even in death, even when you have lost everything, you can still choose how you leave. Jon Snow travels south to Dragonstone to meet Daenerys and ask for her help against the White Walkers. The meeting between Jon and Daenerys is one of the most anticipated moments in the show's history. Two characters whose storylines have run parallel for 6 seasons finally colliding, and the show plays it beautifully. Neither trusts the other. Jon will not bend the knee. Daenerys will not commit her forces to a war against an enemy she has never seen, but they are drawn to each other, and over the course of the season, their alliance becomes something more personal. And most critically, the White Walkers acquire a dragon. Beyond the Wall is Season 7, Episode 6. It aired on August 20th, 2017. Jon leads a small team beyond the Wall to capture a dead soldier reanimated by the White Walkers, to bring back to King's Landing as proof that the threat is real. The mission goes wrong. The team is surrounded on a frozen lake by the army of the dead. Daenerys flies north with all 3 dragons to rescue them. She saves them, but the Night King hurls an ice spear with inhuman precision and strikes Viserion, one of Daenerys' 3 dragons, in the neck. The dragon screams. He falls from the sky. He crashes through the ice and sinks into the frozen lake. And then, in the final scene of the episode, the army of the dead drags Viserion's body from the water. The Night King walks to the dragon's corpse. He places his hand on its snout, and Viserion's eye opens, blue. The Dragon and the Wolf is Season 7, Episode 7, the season finale. It aired on August 27, 2017. The episode contains the summit at the Dragon Pit, where Jon and Daenerys present the captured White to Cersei and attempt to negotiate a truce so that the living can face the dead together. Cersei agrees. Cersei is lying. She has no intention of sending her army north. She plans to let the dead and the Northerners destroy each other while she consolidates her hold on the south. The season ends at the Wall. Eastwatch by the sea. The Night King arrives, riding the undead Viserion. The dragon breathes blue fire, a stream of energy that is not flame exactly. Something colder, something more destructive. It hits the wall, 700 feet of enchanted ice, 8,000 years of magic and stone, begins to crack. The wall crumbles. It falls in vast chunks into the sea. And the army of the dead marches through the breach, into the Seven Kingdoms. For the first time in 8 millennia. The wall is gone. The one defense that has held since the Age of Heroes is gone. And the Night King, riding a dragon that once belonged to the woman who came to save the world, leads his army south. The weapon has turned on its creator once again. Season 7 contains other threads that deserve attention. The Spoils of War is Season 7 Episode 4, aired on August 6, 2017, and it features the first time a Targaryen dragon is deployed in battle against a Westerosi army in over a century. Daenerys, frustrated by the losses she has suffered through conventional strategy, rides Drogon into battle against the Lannister supply train returning from Highgarden. The Dothraki charge across the field. And then Drogon arrives. The sequence is shot from the perspective of the soldiers on the ground, and the effect is transformative. For 7 seasons, the show has depicted warfare as a brutal but human affair. Swords and shields and strategy and courage. The arrival of Drogon changes the equation entirely. He burns the supply wagons. He burns the soldiers. He turns the Lannister army from a disciplined fighting force into a panicked mob. And Jaime, watching from horseback, sees the future. He sees what happens when dragons meet armies. He sees the field of fire repeating itself. And the expression on his face is not fear exactly, it is recognition. He understands that everything he knows about warfare, everything he was trained for, everything that made him a great soldier, is obsolete. The dragons have returned, and the rules have changed. Bronn manages to wound Drogon with a scorpion bolt, a massive crossbow designed to kill dragons. The bolt pierces Drogon's shoulder. The dragon screams. Daenerys lands to remove the bolt, and Jaime, seeing an opportunity to end the war in a single stroke, charges at her with a lance. He rides straight at the woman on the wounded dragon. It is, depending on your perspective, either the bravest or the most suicidal act of the entire series. Drogon turns, his mouth opens, and Bronn tackles Jaime off his horse into the river, saving him from Dragonfire by inches. The scene works because it forces you to hold 2 contradictory sympathies at once. You understand Jaime's logic. Kill Daenerys and the war ends. But you also do not want Daenerys to die. And the show refuses to resolve this tension. It refuses to tell you who is right. It just shows you 2 people, each convinced of their cause, each willing to die for it, and it lets you sit with the fact that in this story, heroism and villainy are a matter of perspective. There is also the Winterfell storyline of Season 7, where Arya and Sansa are reunited and immediately begin to distrust each other. Littlefinger, still operating in the shadows, tries to turn the Stark sisters against each other. He manipulates Arya into finding a letter Sansa wrote years ago, under duress, asking Robb to bend the knee to Joffrey. He whispers poison into Sansa's ear about Arya's loyalties. For several episodes, it seems to be working. The tension between Arya and Sansa is genuine. They have been apart for years, become different people, developed skills and perspectives that do not align. Arya has become a killer. Sansa has become a politician. Neither fully trusts the other. But in the season finale, the trap snaps shut on Littlefinger instead. Sansa summons Arya to the Great Hall of Winterfell, and it appears that Sansa is about to accuse Arya of treason. Instead, Sansa turns to Littlefinger. She lists his crimes. The murder of Lysa Arryn, the betrayal of Ned Stark, the letter to Catelyn that blamed the Lannisters for a murder Littlefinger himself arranged. And Arya steps forward and cuts his throat. Littlefinger, the man who started the War of the Five Kings, the man who engineered the downfall of multiple houses, the man who climbed the Chaos Ladder from Minor Lord to Lord of the Vale, dies on the floor of Winterfell's Great Hall. He dies because he underestimated the Stark children. He played his games assuming they were still the naive, scattered orphans he remembered. He did not account for the fact that Bran can see the past, that Arya can kill anyone, and that Sansa has learned his own tricks and turned them against him. The student surpassed the master. The weapon turned on its creator, one final time. The Season 7 finale also confirms Jon's parentage beyond any doubt. Bran witnesses the secret wedding of Rhaegar and Lyanna in a vision. Sam provides the documentary evidence. a journal entry from the High Septon recording the annulment of Rhaegar's marriage to Elia Martell and his subsequent marriage to Lyanna. Jon Snow is Aegon Targaryen. He is the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne, and while this revelation plays out, the show cuts between the historical confirmation and the present moment, where Jon and Daenerys are together, falling in love, on a ship sailing north to Winterfell. The person she is falling in love with is her nephew. The person who threatens her claim to the throne is the person she is beginning to trust most. The irony is unmistakable. The show is weaving love and politics into a knot that cannot be untied without cutting someone. Season 8 is the final season. It consists of 6 episodes. It aired between April 14th and May 19th, 2019, and it is, by any measure, the most controversial season of television in recent memory. The debates about the final season are endless and often angry, and this video essay is not going to settle them. What it will do is walk through what happens, beat by beat, and examine what the show was trying to say, whether or not you believe it said it well. There is a character who threads through the final seasons without fanfare, without grand speeches, without dramatic reveals, and who is, in many ways, the moral center of the story. Davos Seaworth, the Onion Knight, a former smuggler who lost his fingertips as punishment for his crimes, and who served Stannis Baratheon with a loyalty that was never blind, but was always fierce. Davos is the common man in a story about lords and queens and dragons. He cannot read when the show begins. He has no great house behind him. He has no army, no claim, no magic. He has only his judgment and his decency, and the show argues, quietly but insistently, that these are the most valuable qualities anyone possesses. Davos is the one who asks Melisandre to resurrect Jon. Davos is the one who discovers that Shireen was burned, and confronts Melisandre about it, his grief too raw for eloquence, his voice breaking as he demands to know what happened to the little girl who taught him to read. Davos is the one who stands beside Jon at the Battle of the Bastards, who serves as his advisor at Winterfell, who brokers the meeting with Daenerys, who survives the long night and the burning of King's Landing, and sits at the table in the final episode as a member of Bran's small council. Davos never sits on a throne, he never wields a great weapon, he never kills a king or saves the world, but he endures. He makes himself useful, he serves the people who need him, and tells them the truth, even when the truth is unwelcome. In a story filled with characters who reach for power and are destroyed by it, Davos is the one who never reaches. He just works. And the show rewards him for it, not with glory but with survival, which in the world of Game of Thrones is the rarest gift of all. Winterfell, Season 8, Episode 1, aired on April 14th, 2019. The episode is a reunion. Characters who have not seen each other in years converge on Winterfell. Jon and Arya embrace for the first time since Season 1. The Hound and Arya share a look that contains entire seasons of history. Jaime Lannister arrives at Winterfell and locks eyes with Bran Stark, the boy he pushed from a window 7 seasons ago. The last time they were in the same frame, Jaime was committing attempted murder. Now he has come to fight for the living. The look Bran gives him is unreadable, because Bran is no longer Bran. He is the three-eyed raven, a repository of all human memory, and whatever he feels when he sees the man who crippled him, it is not something as simple as anger or forgiveness. The episode also contains the revelation that reshapes everything. Sam tells Jon the truth about his parentage. Jon is not Ned's bastard. He is Aegon Targaryen, the legitimate son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, married in a secret ceremony. He is the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. His claim supersedes Daenerys's, and the look on Jon's face when he hears this is not triumph. It is horror. He does not want the throne. He has never wanted the throne. But the truth does not care what Jon wants. The truth has its own gravity, and it is about to pull everything apart. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, Season 8, Episode 2, aired on April 21st, 2019. This is the episode before the battle, the night before the army of the dead arrives at Winterfell. And it is, quietly, one of the most beautiful episodes the show has produced. There is no battle. There is barely any plot. There are people sitting by the fire, drinking wine, telling stories, knowing that most of them will be dead by morning. The centerpiece is Brienne of Tarth. She sits by the fire with Jaime, Tyrion, Tormund, Podrick, and Davos. Tormund asks why she is not a knight. Brienne explains that women cannot be knights. Jaime stands, he draws his sword, and he knights her. Sir Brienne of Tarth. The the first woman knight in the history of Westeros. The camera holds on Brienne's face, and the emotion that crosses it is not pride or gratitude or triumph. It is something simpler and harder to name. She has been seen. For the first time in her life, someone has looked at who she is, what she has done, what she has endured, and said, "You are enough. You were always enough." The scene is quiet. The fire crackles. The others raise their cups. And outside, the dead are coming. The Long Night is Season 8, Episode 3. It aired on April 28, 2019. At 82 minutes, it is the longest episode of the series, and by any production measure, one of the most ambitious episodes of television ever attempted. The battle took 55 consecutive nights to film in Belfast, in the cold, in the mud, with hundreds of extras and multiple units, and a scale that no television production had ever attempted. Whatever you think of the creative choices, the physical achievement is staggering. The battle itself is the culmination of the threat that has been building since the first scene of the first episode. 8 years and 70 episodes earlier, the Night King has been marching south since before the show began. He has been gathering his army, adding every fallen wildling, every dead ranger, every casualty of every skirmish beyond the wall, to his ranks. By the time he reaches Winterfell, his army is limitless. Every person who dies in the battle stands up and fights for the dead. The mathematics are simple and terrifying. The longer the battle lasts, the weaker the living become, and the stronger the dead grow. The battle begins in darkness. The Dothraki charge into the black, their arcs lit by Melisandre's magic, flames flickering across the field like a river of fire streaming toward the invisible enemy. And then the lights go out. One by one, the flames are swallowed by the dark. The Dothraki are gone, not defeated in a fight, consumed, erased. The most fearsome cavalry in the known world, riders who have never lost a battle, gallop into the darkness and simply cease to exist. It is the single most effective demonstration of the Army of the Dead's power in the entire series, and it happens in 30 seconds without showing a single blow landed. The Army of the Dead overwhelms the first line of defense. The trenches are lit, the walls are breached. The dead flood into Winterfell, and the battle becomes a desperate, room by room, corridor by corridor fight for survival. Arya fights in the library, silent, moving between shelves while whites shuffle past her. The sequence is almost horror, a lone figure in a dark room surrounded by monsters, and it demonstrates the skills she learned in Braavos. She is silent, she is patient, she is deadly, and she is terrified, which matters, because Arya has not been visibly afraid in seasons. The Army of the Dead breaks through her training and reminds her that she is not no one. She is someone. She is a girl who does not want to die. Theon Greyjoy dies in the Godswood, defending Bran. His arc, from Stark Ward to Greyjoy Prince to traitor to broken man to redeemed defender, ends in the place where it began, in Winterfell, in service to the family he betrayed. Bran tells him, "You are a good man, Theon," and Theon charges the Night King, knowing it will kill him, because for the first time in years, he is choosing to be brave rather than being forced to be afraid. Jorah Mormont dies defending Daenerys. He fights until his body gives out, cut down by whites while shielding the woman he has loved since the first season. He dies in her arms. He dies doing the only thing he ever truly wanted to do, protect her. And then Arya kills the Night King. She appears from the darkness, leaping at him with the Valyrian steel dagger that was once used in an assassination attempt on Bran. The Night King catches her by the throat. She drops the dagger from one hand to the other and drives it into his chest. He shatters. His White Walker lieutenants shatter. Every white in the army falls. The long night ends. Not with a great hero standing against the darkness, with a girl, trained to be no one, choosing to be someone, and ending the war with a single stroke. The threat that drove the story for 8 seasons is over. The dead are gone, and the living are left with each other. There is a specific kind of emptiness that follows a victory like this, and the show captures it perfectly. The existential threat, the one that gave everyone a common purpose, the one that made petty squabbles and political rivalries feel irrelevant, is gone. And without it, the old divisions come rushing back. The North still does not trust the Dragon Queen. Daenerys still wants the throne. Cersei still holds King's Landing. The living won the war against the dead, but winning did not unite them. It just removed the one thing that was holding them together. Melisandre dies at the end of the battle. She walks out of Winterfell's gates, into the field of the dead, removes her choker, and ages centuries in seconds. She collapses into the snow, ancient, spent, her purpose fulfilled. She kept herself alive for this battle, for this moment, for the Lord of Light's work to be done. And now it is done, and she lets go. The Red Woman who burned Shireen, who birthed shadows, who brought Jon Snow back from the dead, walks into the dawn and dies without ceremony, without fanfare, without anyone mourning her. The show does not judge her. It does not forgive her. It just lets her end. The dagger Arya uses to kill the Night King is the same Valyrian steel dagger that an assassin used to try to kill Bran in Season 1, the event that sent Catelyn Stark to King's Landing, the event that Littlefinger used to point suspicion at the Lannisters, the event that set the entire political plot of the show in motion. The dagger that nearly killed a Stark in the first season saves the world in the last. The weapon has come full circle. And Bran, who was sitting in the Godswood as bait for the Night King, who allowed himself to be used as a target so that the Night King would expose himself, may have known this would happen. Bran sees the past and the present. He gave the dagger to Arya in Season 7. The show never confirms that Bran orchestrated the Night King's death, but it never denies it either. And the implication sits there, quiet and unsettling, like so much of what Bran does in the later seasons. The Last of the Starks is Season 8, Episode 4. It aired on May 5, 2019. The title is a double meaning that unfolds over the course of the episode. It refers both to the surviving Stark children and to the possibility that their house, the family that has anchored the story from the beginning, might not survive the political landscape that follows the war. The Starks won the battle, now they have to survive the peace. The battle is won, the dead are burned, the funeral pyres stretch across the fields outside Winterfell, and the scene is filmed with the heavy, exhausted stillness of a morning after catastrophe. Jon speaks over the dead. Daenerys weeps over Jorah's body, and then the feast begins, and the celebration that follows is loud and messy and sad, in the way that all celebrations after a close brush with death are sad. People drink too much. People say things they would not normally say, and the fractures that were hidden by the common enemy begin to show. There is a moment during the feast that encapsulates the entire tragedy of the final season in a single shot. Daenerys sits at the head table, watching the room. Jon is surrounded by people. Tormund is shouting his praises. The Northern Lords are laughing. Jon is their hero. He is the man who brought the free folk south, who rallied the North, who rode a dragon into battle. And Daenerys watches, and nobody toasts her. Nobody comes to her table. Nobody celebrates the woman whose dragons saved them all, whose army held the line, whose fire lit the trenches and burned the dead. She is invisible. She is powerful beyond measure and completely alone, and the camera holds on her face, and the realization that settles there is the most dangerous thing in the room. Not anger. Something worse. Certainty. The certainty that she will never be loved here, that she will only ever be feared. And for a woman who has defined herself through the devotion of the people she frees, that realization is the crack that breaks the dam. The central fracture is between Jon and Daenerys. Jon has told Sansa and Arya the truth about his parentage, despite Daenerys begging him not to. Sansa tells Tyrion. Tyrion tells Varys. The secret spreads, and Daenerys watches it spread, with the growing certainty that the people around her will never love her, that they will always love Jon more, that her entire claim to the throne, the thing that has driven her from the first season, the thing that gave her identity and purpose and meaning, is being taken from her by the man she loves. Missandei is captured by Cersei's forces. Rhaegal, Daenerys' second dragon, is killed by Euron Greyjoy's scorpion bolts. In two swift, brutal strokes, Daenerys loses her closest friend and one of her children, and when she rides to the gates of King's Landing to negotiate, Cersei has Missandei executed in front of her. The mountain takes Missandei's head. Her last word is Dracarys. Burn them all. The parallel to the Mad King is not accidental. The show has been drawing this comparison for seasons, carefully, incrementally. Daenerys has always believed she is different from her father. She has always believed that her cause is just, that her power is in service of liberation, that she will break the wheel rather than turn it. But the show has been showing you, scene by scene, season by season, that Daenerys' relationship with power is more complicated than she admits. She crucified the Masters of Meereen. She burned the Tarlys alive when they refused to bend the knee. She surrounded herself with advisors who told her what she wanted to hear and dismissed the ones who told her what she needed to hear. The signs were always there. The question was never whether Daenerys was capable of terrible things. The question was whether anything would stop her. The Bells is Season 8, Episode 5. It aired on May 12, 2019. Daenerys attacks King's Landing with Drogon, her last remaining dragon. The Scorpions are destroyed. The Golden Company is routed. The Lannister army throws down its weapons. The bells of the city ring, the signal of surrender. Cersei has lost. The war is over. And Daenerys does not stop. She rides Drogon over the city and burns it. She burns the streets and the houses and the markets and the people. She burns soldiers who have surrendered. She burns women and children who are running. She burns the city that was supposed to be her birthright, the city her family built, the city she crossed the world to claim. She burns it all. Before the battle, Varys dies. The Spider, the master of whisperers, the man who has served every king since Aerys, the man who claims to serve only the realm. Varys sees what Daenerys is becoming. He sees the madness, the isolation, the growing ruthlessness, and he does what he has always done. He schemes. He tries to poison her. He writes letters revealing Jon's true parentage, trying to put a better ruler on the throne, and Daenerys finds out. Tyrion, torn between loyalty to his queen and his friendship with Varys, tells her, and Daenerys has Varys burned alive by Drogon on the beach at Dragonstone. Varys' death is quiet and dignified. He stands on the sand. He does not beg. He does not run. He faces the fire the way he has faced every danger in his life, with a calm that borders on resignation. He tells Tyrion he hopes he is wrong about Daenerys. He is not wrong. He is the last person to try to stop her before the burning, and his death removes the last voice of caution from her council. With Varys gone, with Missandei dead, with Jorah dead, with Jon pulling away from her, Daenerys is alone, surrounded by armies, perched on a dragon, the most powerful person in the world, and utterly, completely alone. And alone is when the madness takes hold. The sequence is long and relentless. The camera follows Arya through the streets as she runs from the Dragonfire, stumbling past burning bodies, pulling a mother and child from the rubble, only to watch them die. The camera follows Jon as he watches his own soldiers commit atrocities in the chaos, attacking civilians, raping, murdering. The army of the North, the Unsullied, the Dothraki, all of them consumed by the violence that Daenerys has unleashed. The liberation has become a massacre. The breaker of chains has become the thing she said she would destroy. There is a moment before the burning that the show does not draw attention to, and it is one of the most revealing moments in the entire series. The Hound and the Mountain meet on the stairs of the Red Keep, Sandor Clegane and Gregor Clegane, brothers. The Hound, burned as a child by his own brother, who held his face in a fire for playing with one of his toys. The Mountain, now an undead monstrosity, kept alive by Qyburn's experiments, a walking corpse in armor. Their fight, which the fandom calls Cleganabole, has been anticipated since the first season, and the show gives it to them, these two broken men, fighting to the death in a crumbling tower while Dragonfire consumes the city below them. The Hound finally defeats his brother the only way possible. He tackles him through the wall and they fall together, into the fire, and the man who has been terrified of flames his entire life chooses fire as his weapon and his end. That is not the behavior of someone who has overcome fear. That is the behavior of someone who has decided that some things are more important than fear. The Hound has spent the entire series running from fire, running from his brother, running from the violence that defined his childhood, and in his final moment, he runs toward all of it. He chooses the thing that terrifies him most, because it is the only way to end the thing that terrifies him most. That is the Hound's entire arc. A man who hated the world because the world hurt him, who learned slowly, painfully, through his relationships with Arya and Sansa and the Brotherhood Without Banners, that there are things worth caring about, and in the end, he cares enough to burn. Cersei dies in the collapse of the Red Keep, buried under stone with Jaime, who came back for her because he could not stop loving her, even knowing what she was. Jaime's return to Cersei is one of the most debated decisions in the final season. After leaving her, after fighting at Winterfell, after being knighted by Brienne and sharing her bed, Jaime rides south. He tells Brienne that he is hateful. He lists his sins. He says he is going back to Cersei because he is not the man Brienne thinks he is. And the question the show leaves unanswered is whether Jaime goes back to kill Cersei or to die with her. The answer might be both. The answer might be that Jaime Lannister spent 8 seasons trying to become a better man and ultimately could not escape the gravitational pull of the person who made him worst. The woman who blew up the sept and the man who killed the Mad King to prevent a wildfire explosion die together in the ruins, and the symmetry is almost unbearable. Jaime could not save the city this time. He could not save anyone, not even himself. Tyrion Lannister's arc across the entire series deserves a moment of reflection before we reach the end. He begins as a drinking, whoring, brilliant younger son of the most powerful family in Westeros. He is despised by his father, ignored by the court, defined entirely by his dwarfism, and he survives. Season after season, betrayal after betrayal, he survives. He survives the Battle of the Blackwater and the scars it leaves. He survives his trial and the mountain that nearly killed his champion. He survives murdering his own father and fleeing across the sea. He survives the fighting pits of Meereen, the court of a queen he barely knows, and the politics of a continent that wants him dead. And by the final season, Tyrion is broken in a different way than when the show began. He is no longer the quickest wit in the room. His plans fail. His advice is wrong. His faith in Daenerys proves catastrophically misplaced. The man who once outwitted Cersei at every turn becomes the man who cannot see what is happening right in front of him until it is too late. And the show does this deliberately. Tyrion's decline as a strategist in the later seasons is not an accident. It is the consequence of trauma and exile, and the slow erosion of the confidence that once made him formidable. He lost his family, he lost his city, he lost his identity. And the man who arrived in Meereen is someone running from everything he used to be, trying to reinvent himself in service to a cause he desperately wants to believe is just. Because if the cause is just, then the murders and the losses and the exile all mean something. When Tyrion stands before the assembled lords in the finale and makes his case for Bran as king, he is making one last gamble on his mind. One last pitch. One last attempt to talk his way out of a catastrophe. And it works, which is both fitting and slightly absurd, which is exactly how Tyrion has always operated. He talks. People listen. The world changes. It is not heroism. It is not strength. It is the persistent, annoying, irreducible power of a man who refuses to stop using his brain. The Iron Throne is the series finale. Season 8, Episode 6. It aired on May 19th, 2019. Jon Snow walks through the ruins of King's Landing. Ash falls like snow, the Red Keep is a skeleton, and Daenerys stands before her army, triumphant, terrible, speaking of liberation while the city still burns behind her. She tells the Dothraki and the Unsullied that they have liberated King's Landing, and that they will not stop until they have liberated the entire world. Jon goes to her. Tyrion in chains has begged Jon to do what needs to be done. He asks Jon to think about his sisters, about what Daenerys will do to anyone who threatens her rule, about what Sansa will do when Daenerys demands she bend the knee, about what Daenerys will do when Sansa refuses. Tyrion knows. He has watched the woman he believed in become the thing she promised to destroy, and he cannot stop it, because he is in chains, and his words have failed, and the only person who can stop Daenerys now is the person she trusts most, the person she loves. Jon goes to her. In the destroyed throne room, where the Iron Throne sits beneath a collapsed ceiling, surrounded by snow and ash, Jon faces Daenerys. She is radiant. She is certain. She describes the world she will build, a world where everyone is free, where the tyranny of the old lords is swept away. She genuinely believes she is doing good. That is the most terrifying thing about the scene. She is not cackling. She is not raving. She is describing a utopia, and she does not see that the road to her utopia runs through the ashes of a city she just burned. She asks Jon to build the new world with her. She asks him to stand by her side. Jon kisses her. And while he holds her, he drives a dagger into her heart. Daenerys dies in Jon's arms. Drogon arrives. The dragon nudges his mother's body, trying to wake her, and when she does not stir, he opens his mouth and breathes fire. Not at Jon, at the Iron Throne. Drogon melts the throne. The swords run together like water. The seat of power that Aegon forged from the weapons of his enemies is reduced to a puddle of metal, and Drogon picks up Daenerys' body in his claws and flies away, east, into the sky, and he does not come back. The dragon destroys the throne. Not the person who killed his mother. The throne. The show could not be clearer about what it is saying. The throne killed Daenerys. The throne killed everyone. The pursuit of it, the belief in it, the idea that sitting on a chair made of swords gives you the right to rule the world. That is what destroyed every character who reached for it. Robert, Joffrey, Stannis, Cersei, Daenerys, the throne consumed them all. In the aftermath, the lords of Westeros gather to decide what comes next. Tyrion, who is a prisoner for betraying Daenerys, suggests that they choose a king based not on bloodline or military power but on story. Who has the best story? Bran Stark, Bran the Broken, the boy who fell from a tower and lost his legs, and traveled beyond the wall, and became the memory of the world. The lords agree. Not enthusiastically, not unanimously, but they agree. Bran is named King of the Six Kingdoms, because the North, under Sansa, declares independence. Tyrion is named Hand of the King. Jon is exiled to the Night's Watch, a punishment negotiated to satisfy Grey Worm and the Unsullied, who want justice for Daenerys. Jon rides north, past the wall, into the true north, with Tormund and the Free Folk and Ghost, his direwolf. The last image of Jon Snow is him walking into the forest beyond the wall, leading the wildlings into a new life, far from thrones and politics and the game that consumed everyone he loved. Sansa is crowned queen in the north. The scene is brief and deliberate. The crown is placed on her head in the great hall of Winterfell, and the northern lords cheer, and Sansa sits in the seat her father sat in, her mother sat beside, her brother was crowned in. She is the queen in the north, and the look on her face is not relief or celebration. It is the look of someone who has finally arrived at the place she has been walking toward since season 1, through abuse and manipulation and marriage to monsters and betrayal and grief, and who knows exactly what the crown costs because she has already paid for it in full. Think about Sansa's arc for a second. In season 1, she is a girl who dreams of marrying a prince and living in a castle. She gets exactly what she wished for, and it nearly kills her. The prince is a monster. The castle is a prison. Her father is executed in front of her. She is beaten by the Kingsguard on Joffrey's orders. She is married against her will to Tyrion, then spirited away by Littlefinger, then married again to Ramsay Bolton, who rapes and tortures her. Every fairy tale she believed in is systematically destroyed, and what emerges from the destruction is not a victim but a strategist. Sansa learns from every person who hurts her. She learns manipulation from Cersei. She learns strategy from Littlefinger. She learns endurance from herself. And by the final season, she is the most politically astute person in Westeros. She does not trust Daenerys. She does not trust anyone who says they will give her what she wants. She has learned that nothing given freely in this world comes without a cost. Arya sails west, past the edge of every map, into waters no one has explored. It is the only ending that makes sense for her. Arya was never going to settle down, never going to rule, never going to marry a lord and manage a household. She asks Gendry, after he proposes, whether he really knows her at all. The question is not cruel, it is honest. Arya cannot be contained by a castle. She cannot be contained by a name or a title or a role. She is the explorer, the wanderer, the one who has to see what is beyond the map. And the last we see of her, she is standing at the prow of a ship, looking forward, and the ocean stretches out ahead of her, and it is the most open and hopeful image the show offers. Not a throne, not a crown, an open sea. The 4 Stark children end the series in 4 different places. Jon in the far north, Sansa in Winterfell, Arya on the open sea, Bran on the Iron Throne, or rather, on whatever they build to replace the Iron Throne, since Drogon melted the original. 4 children who were together in the first episode, scattered by war, broken by loss, reshaped by the world, and ultimately, the only family that survives. The Lannisters are gone, the Baratheons are gone, the Tyrells, the Martells, the Boltons, the Freys, all gone. The Starks endure, not because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most ruthless, because they held on to each other. Because when it mattered most, they chose family over power, loyalty over ambition, survival over glory. The pack survives. That is what Ned told Arya in the first season, in a line that becomes the thesis of the entire series. When the snows fall and the white winds blow, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. Bran's journey in particular is worth tracing one final time because it is the strangest and most enigmatic arc in the series, and it ends with him on the throne, which is either the show's most profound statement or its most baffling one, depending on how you read it. Bran begins as a boy who loves to climb. He climbs the walls of Winterfell, the towers, the rooftops. He sees the world from above, and then he falls, and he never walks again, and the boy who saw the world from the highest vantage point is brought to the lowest. He spends season 1 in bed. He spends seasons 2 and 3 learning to warg, to enter the minds of animals and see through their eyes. He spends season 4 traveling beyond the wall, through snow and ice and danger, to find the three-eyed raven, an ancient being who has been waiting for him in a cave beneath a weirwood tree. In seasons 5 and 6, Bran trains. He learns to see the past, to enter the weirwood network, to access the memories of the entire world. And the cost of this training is everything that makes him Bran. He enters the cave as a boy, with a name and a family and a personality. He leaves it as something else entirely. The three-eyed raven, a repository of memory, a being who sees all of time, past and present, and who has shed the personal attachments that define a human life. When Mira Reed says goodbye to him, and tells him he died in that cave, she is not being metaphorical. The Bran who went in did not come out. What came out is wiser, more powerful, and infinitely less human. And this is the person who becomes king, not despite his lack of personal desire, but because of it. Tyrion's argument is that Bran's story, his journey from falling boy to all-seeing raven, makes him the most compelling choice. But the deeper logic is that Bran cannot be corrupted, because Bran does not want anything. The Iron Throne destroyed everyone who desired it. The only person who can sit on the throne without being destroyed by it is the person who does not care about sitting on it. The only ruler who can break the wheel is one who has no stake in whether it turns or not. Whether this is wisdom or horror depends on what you believe about power. Is the best ruler the one who does not want to rule? Or is there something deeply unsettling about handing a kingdom to a being who has transcended human emotion, who watches people suffer with the detachment of someone reading a history book? The show does not answer this. It places Bran on the throne and lets you decide. And that decision, that final act of audience participation, might be the most Game of Thrones thing the show ever does. It gives you the ending and refuses to tell you what it means. And that is the complete timeline of Game of Thrones. From the children of the forest pressing a shard of dragonglass into a man's chest 12,000 years ago, to Bran Stark sitting on a throne in a broken city. From the creation of the first weapon to the destruction of the last one. From winter to winter. The thing that stays with you, after all of it, is not the battles or the dragons or the betrayals. It is the weight. The cumulative weight of a story that insists, again and again, that power is not something you win. It is something that happens to you. Every character who sought the Iron Throne was changed by the seeking. Robert was hollowed out by it. Cersei was twisted by it. Daenerys was consumed by it. Jon never wanted it, which is why the show argues he was the only one who could have been trusted with it, and even he could not bear the cost. Consider the body count. Not just the named characters who die, though the list is staggering. Ned Stark, Robb Stark, Catelyn Stark, Rickon Stark, Robert Baratheon, Joffrey Baratheon, Tommen Baratheon, Stannis Baratheon, Renly Baratheon, Tywin Lannister, Cersei Lannister, Jaime Lannister, Daenerys Targaryen, Viserys Targaryen, Margaery Tyrell, Loras Tyrell, Mace Tyrell, Olenna Tyrell, Oberyn Martell, Khal Drogo, Littlefinger, Varys, the High Sparrow, the Night King, Hodor, Shireen Baratheon, Ygritte, Jorah Mormont, Theon Greyjoy, Missandei, Ramsay Bolton, Roose Bolton, Walder Frey. The list goes on and on. But beyond the named characters, consider the unnamed ones. The people of King's Landing, burned by Daenerys. The people at the Red Wedding, slaughtered for a broken oath. The people of Hardhome, killed by the dead and resurrected as soldiers in the Night King's army. The people in the Great Sept, incinerated by wildfire. The small folk, the common people, the ones who never played the game and died for it anyway. The show keeps count even when the characters do not. It shows you the cost even when the people paying it have no names. The series premiered on April 17, 2011, and concluded on May 19, 2019. In those 8 years, it grew from an ambitious adaptation of George R.R. Martin's novels into the largest television phenomenon in a generation. The Season 7 finale drew over 16 million viewers, and the series finale surpassed even that. The show won 59 Primetime Emmy Awards, more than any other scripted drama series in history at the time of its conclusion. It was broadcast in over 170 countries. It entered the culture so deeply that it reshaped how television dramas are made, funded, and consumed. No show before it had attempted storytelling on this scale, with this budget, with this level of ambition. And the conversation about whether the final season honored that ambition or squandered it will continue for decades. But this video essay is not about whether the ending was good or bad. It is about what the ending means within the timeline. And within the timeline, the ending is consistent with everything that came before. The show told you from the beginning that the throne was a trap. It told you in the first episode, when Cersei said you win or you die. It told you when Ned was beheaded for being honorable. It told you when Robb was murdered for being in love. It told you when Daenerys walked into a fire and emerged with dragons, because the birth of those dragons was also the birth of the weapons that would eventually destroy everything she built. The ending was always going to be the destruction of the throne. The only question was who would be left standing when the metal cooled. The timeline of Westeros is a spiral, not a circle, not a line, a spiral. The same patterns recur, the same mistakes are made, but each iteration carries the scars of the ones that came before. The children created the White Walkers. The Targaryens conquered with dragons. Robert rebelled against tyranny. Daenerys promised liberation. Each one believed they were breaking the cycle. Each one became part of it. The only character who breaks the pattern is the one who can see all of it. Every cycle, every repetition, every mistake. Bran Stark, the boy who fell and the man who remembers. There is a specific kind of sadness that comes from finishing a story you have lived inside for years. Not the sadness of a bad ending or a disappointing one. The sadness of completion itself. The world of Westeros is closed now. There are no more secrets to uncover, no more theories to debate, no more episodes to anticipate. The story is told, the characters are fixed in amber, and the only thing left is to look back at the whole of it, from the beginning to the end, and try to understand what you just experienced. Game of Thrones asked you to care about dozens of characters, to invest in their struggles and their triumphs, and then it showed you, with relentless honesty, that caring is dangerous, that the people you root for will die, that the victories you celebrate will curdle into defeats, that the heroes are not always heroic and the villains are not always wrong. It asked you to hold complexity, to resist the urge to simplify, to accept that a story about power is also a story about love, and a story about love is also a story about loss, and a story about loss is also, somehow, a story about hope. Because the Starks survive, because the wheel is broken, because somewhere beyond the wall, Jon Snow walks into the forest, and the trees close behind him, and the world goes quiet, and winter is finally over. Whether that is satisfying is a question the show leaves with you. Whether Bran is a good king, whether the realm will heal, whether the lessons were learned, or whether the spiral will begin again, the show does not answer these questions. It does not wrap them in a bow. It ends with an open road, and an uncharted sea, and a forest stretching beyond the wall, and it trusts you to carry the rest. The Iron Throne is gone, melted, destroyed by a dragon grieving for its mother. The seat that everyone killed for, schemed for, died for, is nothing but a stain on the floor of a ruined hall, and the story that began with a throne ends without one. The snow drifts through the broken ceiling. The wind moves through the empty chamber, and somewhere beyond the wall, beyond the reach of kings and queens and the games they play, the forest is quiet, and the world goes on. That is the timeline. All of it. 8 seasons, 73 episodes, 8 years of television, 12,000 years of fictional history. And at the center of it, the same question, asked again and again, by every character who lived and died in this story. What is power worth? What will you sacrifice to get it? And what is left of you when you do? The answer the show gives is simple and terrible and true. Everything. You will sacrifice everything. And when you do, you will discover that the thing you sacrificed everything for was never worth having in the first place. That is the lesson the Iron Throne teaches. That is the only lesson it has ever taught. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.